The alarm clock screamed at 600 a.m. just like it had every morning for the past 7 years. Ryan Collins reached over and silenced it with the practiced motion of a man who had learned to function on autopilot. Beside him, the other half of the bed remained perfectly made untouched, a daily reminder of the life that had ended on a rainy Tuesday evening when Emma was just 6 months old. Ryan sat on the edge of the bed, running his hands through dark hair that was starting to show grey at the temples. 35 years old, and he felt ancient. The house around him was quiet, except for the soft sounds of his 7-year-old daughter sleeping down the hall. Emma. The only reason he got up each morning, the only reason he kept moving forward when everything inside him had died with Sarah. The routine never changed. Shower shave dress in one of the 5 identical grey suits that hung in his closet like soldiers in formation. Coffee black, no sugar because Sarah used to make it sweet, and he couldn't bear the taste of sweetness anymore. Pack Emma's lunch with the mechanical precision of someone who had done it. 825 times. Peanut butter and jelly apple slices juice box cookie. The same every day because change required energy he didn't possess. Emma appeared in the kitchen at exactly 7:15, her blonde hair messy from sleep, wearing the school uniform Ryan had laid out the night before. She looked so much like Sarah it sometimes stopped his breath. The same blue eyes, the same stubborn chin, the same way of tilting her head when she was thinking. "Morning, Daddy," Emma said, climbing onto her chair at the breakfast table. Her voice was quiet, careful. At 7, she had already learned to read his moods, to navigate around the edges of his grief. "Morning, sweetheart." Ryan placed a bowl of cereal in front of her, the same brand Sarah used to buy. "Sleep okay?" Emma nodded, stirring her cereal with unusual concentration. Ryan could tell she wanted to say something, but she was building up to it the way children do when they're afraid of the answer. "Daddy?" she finally said, not looking up from her bowl. "Yeah, Katie's mum is coming to the school play next week." Emma's voice was so small, Ryan had to lean forward to hear her. "All the other kids have mums coming. I was wondering." She trailed off the question hanging in the air between them. Ryan felt the familiar tightness in his chest, the weight that never fully lifted. "I'll be there, Em. You know I'll be there." "I know." Emma looked up at him with those serious blue eyes. "But I was wondering if maybe someday I might have a mom, too. Not instead of the mom who went to heaven, but a different kind of mom. One who could come to school plays and braid my hair and teach me girl things." The question hit Ryan like a physical blow. In 7 years, Emma had never asked about having a mother. She'd accepted their life as just the two of them, with the resilience that children possess. But now she was getting older, noticing the gaps, feeling the absence of something she'd never had. Ryan started, then stopped. What could he say? That he'd never love anyone else. That the very thought of another woman in their home felt like betraying Sarah's memory. That he was so broken inside he didn't think he was capable of feeling anything for anyone ever again. "It's okay, Daddy," Emma said quickly, misreading his silence. "I was just wondering. I don't need a mom. I have you and you're the best daddy ever." But as she said it, Ryan saw something in her eyes that made his heart ache. Longing. His little girl was longing for something he couldn't give her, and she was trying to protect his feelings by pretending she didn't need it. After dropping Emma at school, Ryan drove to the accounting firm where he'd worked for the past 12 years. Collins and Associates had been his dream once, building something with his name on it, creating a legacy. Now it was just a place to spend 8 hours so he could pay the bills and keep Emma's world stable. His assistant, Mrs. Henderson, greeted him with the same worried smile she'd worn for years. "Morning, Mr. Collins. Your mother called. She wants to know if you're coming to Sunday dinner this week." Ryan almost smiled. Almost. His mother, Margaret, had been trying to drag him back into the land of the living since Sarah's funeral. Every week, the same invitation. Every week, the same polite decline. "Tell her we're busy," Ryan said, settling at his desk. Sir Mrs. Henderson hesitated. "If you don't mind me saying, Emma's growing up. She needs more than just work and school and home. She needs family connections, community joy." Ryan looked up sharply. "Emma is fine, Mrs." Henderson held his gaze for a moment, then nodded. "Of course, sir. I'll tell your mother you're busy." But her words stayed with him throughout the day. That evening, as he watched Emma do homework at the kitchen table, he really looked at her for the first time in months. She was methodical, careful, older than her years. She didn't hum while she worked the way Sarah used to. She didn't chatter about her friends or complain about her teacher. She moved through her evening routine with the same quiet efficiency that Ryan had taught her through his example. When had she become so serious? When had the light gone out of her eyes? That night after Emma was asleep, Ryan stood in his bedroom looking at the framed photo on his nightstand. Sarah on their wedding day, radiant in white, laughing at something he'd whispered in her ear. He picked up the frame, traced her face with his finger. "I don't know how to do this without you," he whispered to the empty room. "I don't know how to be enough for her." The photo stared back at him, frozen in eternal happiness, offering no answers. The next morning brought more of the same routine, but something had shifted. Ryan found himself watching Emma more carefully, noticing the way she set the table for exactly 2 people, never more. The way she played quietly in her room, imagination contained within appropriate boundaries. The way she never asked for anything beyond what was necessary. At 7 years old, his daughter had learned to live half a life just like he had. The realization hit him like cold water. Emma wasn't fine. She was surviving, adapting, making the best of a situation that was slowly suffocating both of them. And unless something changed, she would grow up believing that this hollow existence was what family looked like. That Saturday, while Emma played in the backyard, Ryan's phone rang. His sister Jennifer's name appeared on the screen. "Ryan, we need to talk," Jennifer said without preamble. "Mum and I are coming over tonight after Emma goes to bed. There's something important we need to discuss." Jen: "I don't want to hear another lecture about—" "This isn't about you," Jennifer interrupted. "This is about Emma, about what's best for her. Just, please, give us an hour tonight." Ryan looked out the window at Emma, who was sitting alone on the swing set, not swinging, just sitting and staring at the fence. Making no sound, disturbing no one, existing in the careful, quiet way she'd learned, was expected of her. "Fine," he said. 1 hour. At 8:30 that evening, after Emma had been tucked into bed with her usual bedtime story, the doorbell rang. Ryan opened it to find his mother, Margaret, his sister Jennifer, and his aunt Patricia standing on his porch. They entered with the determined air of women on a mission. Margaret Collins was 62 with silver hair and the kind of no-nonsense demeanor that came from raising 3 children and burying a husband. Jennifer was 33, 2 years younger than Ryan, with the same dark hair and blue eyes that ran in their family. Patricia, his mother's sister, was the family matriarch, the one who made decisions when decisions needed making. They settled in the living room, surrounded by the carefully maintained shrine Ryan had created to his former life. Photos of Sarah covered every surface. Her books still lined the shelves. Her coffee mug still sat in the kitchen cabinet unwashed since the morning she died. Ryan Margaret began her voice gentle but firm. "We're worried about you. More importantly, we're worried about Emma." "Emma's fine," Ryan said automatically. The same response he'd been giving for 7 years. "No, she's not," Jennifer said, pulling out her phone. "Look at this photo from last weekend's family barbecue. Look at her face." Ryan reluctantly looked at the screen. The photo showed Emma sitting alone at a picnic table while her cousins played nearby. Her expression was blank, distant, like she was watching life happen around her rather than participating in it. "She's just shy," Ryan said, but the words felt hollow even to him. Patricia leaned forward. Ryan, I've been a kindergarten teacher for 35 years. I know what a thriving child looks like, and I know what a child in crisis looks like. Emma is shutting down. She's too quiet, too careful, too worried about disturbing anyone or asking for anything. She's adapting to our situation, Ryan said defensively. She's dying inside, Margaret said bluntly. Just like you are. And if something doesn't change soon, you're going to lose her. Not to death, but to silence, to the belief that she doesn't deserve more than bare minimum survival. The words hit Ryan like a slap. What are you suggesting? The three women exchanged glances. Jennifer reached into her purse and pulled out a folder. We found someone, she said carefully. A woman who needs help, and who could help you in return. Ryan stared at the folder. What kind of help? Her name is Claire Mitchell, Patricia explained. She's 28, college-educated, worked as a librarian before her family fell into financial trouble. She's kind, responsible, good with children. And she needs a husband, Margaret added. For practical reasons, not romantic ones. Her family is facing serious debt. They're about to lose everything they have. Ryan's blood ran cold. You want me to marry a stranger? We want you to consider a partnership, Jennifer said quickly. A practical arrangement that would benefit everyone involved. Claire gets financial security. Emma gets a mother figure. You get help raising your daughter and running a household. No. Ryan stood up abruptly. Absolutely not. I'm not Sarah. I will never be Sarah. We're not asking you to replace Sarah, Margaret said softly. We're asking you to save Emma, and maybe save yourself in the process. Patricia opened the folder, revealing documents that had clearly been prepared by lawyers. It would be a marriage of convenience, Ryan. A business arrangement. Claire understands the situation. She's not looking for romance or emotional entanglement. She just needs stability, and you need help. Emma needs a woman in her life, Jennifer added. Someone who can teach her things you can't. Someone who can show her that it's okay to laugh, to ask for things, to take up space in the world. Ryan looked around the room at the photos of Sarah, at the life frozen in time. I can't. I won't dishonor Sarah's memory by marrying someone I don't love. You're dishonoring Sarah's memory by refusing to live, Margaret said, her voice cracking with emotion. Do you think she would want this for Emma? Do you think she would want her daughter growing up in a tomb, learning that love is something that happens once and then ends in permanent grief? The question hung in the air. Ryan closed his eyes, trying to block out the truth he didn't want to face. Claire doesn't expect love, Patricia said gently. She just expects respect, kindness, and a chance to help raise Emma in a home where there's more than just survival. She's willing to sign any agreement you want regarding expectations and boundaries. What about Emma? Ryan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. How do I explain this to her? Emma's been asking for a mother, Jennifer said. She told me herself last weekend. She said she knows she can't have her real mummy back, but she wonders what it would be like to have someone who could braid her hair and teach her about girl things. Ryan felt the walls closing in. Everything they were saying made logical sense, but it felt like betraying everything he'd believed about love and marriage and honoring the dead. I need time to think, he said. Emma doesn't have time, Margaret said firmly. She's 7 years old, Ryan. These are the years when she learns what normal looks like, what family feels like, what it means to be loved and valued. If you wait too long, the damage might be irreversible. Patricia placed the folder on the coffee table. All the arrangements are in here. The financial details, the legal agreements, everything. Claire is willing to meet with you to discuss expectations openly and honestly. She's a good woman, Ryan, Jennifer said. I've spoken with her extensively. She's not looking to take Sarah's place or change everything about your life. She just wants a chance to help create a home where Emma can thrive. After they left, Ryan sat alone in his living room staring at the folder. Inside were documents that would change everything. Contracts that would bring a stranger into the house where he and Sarah had planned to grow old together. He climbed the stairs to check on Emma, as he did every night. She was curled up in her bed, clutching a stuffed rabbit that had been Sarah's when Sarah was a child. Even in sleep, Emma's face looked worried, like she was trying to solve problems too big for a 7-year-old mind. Ryan sat on the edge of her bed, watching her breathe. His beautiful, serious, too-quiet daughter, who was learning to expect nothing and disturb no one, who played alone and asked for little and smiled so rarely that it startled him when it happened. What would Sarah want? Really want Sarah, who had laughed at everything and filled their home with music and light? Sarah, who had talked excitedly about teaching Emma to bake cookies and have tea parties and all the mother-daughter adventures they would share? Sarah, who had made him promise in those final moments at the hospital to take care of their baby, to make sure Emma knew she was loved. Was this taking care of Emma? This careful, quiet existence where neither of them really lived? Ryan returned to the living room and opened the folder. Claire Mitchell's photograph showed a woman with brown hair and serious eyes, someone who looked like she carried the weight of the world on her shoulders. Her resume revealed a master's degree in library science volunteer work with children's literacy programs, glowing recommendations from former employers. The proposed arrangements were surprisingly detailed and fair. Claire would have her own bedroom, her own space, her own life within the household. She would help with Emma's care, household management, and social development. In return, she would receive financial support for herself and assistance with her family's debt. It was practical, logical, completely devoid of emotion or romance or any of the things Ryan had once believed were essential to marriage. But maybe that was exactly what he needed. Maybe emotion was too dangerous, too risky. Maybe practical was the only way he could move forward without betraying the love he still carried for Sarah. At midnight, Ryan picked up his phone and called Jennifer. "I'll meet with her," he said. When his sister answered, "But I want Emma protected. Whatever we decide, Emma's well-being comes first." "Of course," Jennifer said, relief evident in her voice. "We'll arrange a meeting for next week." After hanging up, Ryan returned to his bedroom to the photo of Sarah on his nightstand. "I don't know if this is right," he whispered, "but I don't know how to help her on my own anymore. I hope you understand." The woman in the photograph smiled back at him, frozen in eternal happiness, offering no judgment. Only love. The meeting with Claire took place on a Tuesday evening at a quiet coffee shop downtown. Ryan arrived first, choosing a corner table where they could speak privately. When Claire walked in, he recognized her immediately from her photograph, but seeing her in person revealed details the picture hadn't captured. She moved carefully, like someone who had learned to take up as little space as possible. Her clothes were neat but inexpensive, and she carried herself with the posture of someone accustomed to apologizing for her existence. "Mr. Collins," she said, approaching his table with obvious nervousness. "Ryan, please," he said, standing to shake her hand. Her grip was firm but brief, and she sat down quickly, folding her hands in her lap like a schoolgirl called to the principal's office. They spent an hour discussing the practical arrangements. Claire was straightforward about her situation. Her parents had died when she was 21, leaving her responsible for significant medical debt and caring for her younger brother, Jake. She'd exhausted her savings trying to keep their family afloat, and now faced losing everything. "I want to be completely honest," Claire said, her voice steady, despite her obvious nervousness. "I'm not looking for romance. I understand this would be a practical arrangement. I just want security for my family and a chance to contribute to a household where I can make a positive difference." "What about Emma?" Ryan asked. "She's been through enough. I won't have her hurt by someone who's just passing through until something better comes along." Claire's expression softened. Children who have lost a parent need stability above all else. I would never treat your daughter as anything less than precious. I may not be her mother, but I would be someone who cares about her well-being, someone she could count on. Something in her tone convinced Ryan that she meant it. They agreed to a trial period. They would marry quickly and quietly, see how the arrangement worked for everyone involved, and reevaluate after 6 months. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of legal documents and wedding preparations. Ryan moved through it all mechanically, signing papers, approving flowers, nodding when the wedding coordinator asked for his preferences on details he didn't care about. Emma knew something was happening, but Ryan struggled to explain it in terms a 7-year-old could understand. "There's going to be a woman coming to live with us," he told her one evening as they ate dinner. "Her name is Claire, and she's going to help take care of our house and help take care of you. Like a babysitter." Emma asked. "More like—" Ryan paused, searching for the right words. "Like family. She's going to be part of our family." Emma studied his face with those serious blue eyes. "Is she going to be my mom?" The question stabbed through Ryan's chest. "She's going to care about you like a mom would. But no one could ever replace your real mummy who loved you so much and is watching over you from heaven." Emma nodded slowly. "Will she want to change things? The way we do bedtime stories and make breakfast?" "No, sweetheart, nothing important will change. This is still your home, and I'm still your daddy, and you're still the most important person in my life." But even as he said it, Ryan wondered if that was true. Everything was about to change, whether he acknowledged it or not. The rehearsal took place on a Friday evening. The ceremony would be small, just immediate family and a few close friends. Ryan stood at the front of the chapel while the coordinator explained where everyone would stand, how the processional would work, the logistics of a wedding that felt more like a business transaction than a celebration. Emma sat in the front pew wearing a new dress for the occasion. She had barely spoken all day, and Ryan could tell she was processing emotions she didn't have words for. "Let's have the bride do a walk through," the coordinator called. Ryan turned toward the back of the chapel, and Claire appeared from a side door. She was wearing jeans and a simple sweater, but she moved down the aisle with the same careful precision Ryan had noticed at the coffee shop. When she reached the front, she glanced up at him for just a moment, long enough for him to see the uncertainty in her dark eyes, then looked away quickly. "Perfect," the coordinator said. "Tomorrow you'll wait until the music starts, then process at the same pace. Mr. Collins, you'll lift the veil when I indicate, then we'll proceed with the vows." The rehearsal ended, and people began to scatter. Claire was already heading for the exit, moving fast, like she couldn't leave quickly enough. Ryan found himself following her. "Claire, wait!" he called. She turned too quickly, her purse swinging wide and catching a small side table that held a decorative vase. The vase wobbled, teetered, and began to fall. Claire lunged for it and missed. Ryan caught it just before it hit the floor, water sloshing over his hand. "I'm so sorry," Claire said, her face flushing with embarrassment. "I'm always doing that. Knocking things over. I'm so sorry." "It's fine," Ryan said, setting the vase back on the table. "Just water." But Claire looked like she might cry, like she expected him to yell at her to confirm whatever terrible thing she believed about herself. Her reaction was so extreme for such a minor incident that Ryan realized she was used to being blamed for everything, expected to be perfect at all times. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. The kindness in his voice seemed to surprise her. "I'm fine. I should go." She walked away before he could say anything else, leaving Ryan standing in the empty hallway with water dripping from his fingers. Something about the encounter felt significant, though he couldn't put his finger on why. Emma appeared beside him. "Is that her? The lady who's going to live with us, She seemed scared. "Maybe she is." Of what Ryan didn't have an answer. He took Emma's hand, and they walked out into the cool evening air. That night, lying in bed, Ryan kept thinking about Claire's reaction to the falling vase. The way she'd immediately apologized, the way she'd looked at him like she expected anger or disappointment. It reminded him of something, but he couldn't place what. He told himself it didn't matter. Tomorrow he would marry her, they would live together and raise Emma together, but it would be practical. A partnership, nothing emotional. He could do that. He had to do that for Emma's sake. The wedding was scheduled for 2:00 p.m. on Saturday. Ryan woke early, made coffee, sat in his kitchen looking out at the backyard where Sarah used to garden. In a few hours, another woman would be living in this house, sleeping under this roof, helping to raise his daughter. It felt like stepping off the edge of the world. Saturday morning arrived grey and drizzly, the kind of Seattle weather that matched Ryan's mood perfectly. He stood in front of his bathroom mirror, adjusting his tie for the third time, trying to convince himself he was doing the right thing. Emma knocked on his bedroom door at 10 o'clock, already dressed in the light blue dress Jennifer had chosen for her. Her hair was brushed and neat, held back with a matching headband, but her face carried the same serious expression she'd worn all week. "Daddy," she said, standing in his doorway like she wasn't sure she was allowed to enter. "Are you nervous?" Ryan knelt down to her level. "A little bit. Are you?" Emma nodded. "Will things be really different after today?" "Some things will be different," Ryan said honestly. "But the important things won't change. I'm still your daddy. This is still your home, and you're still the most important person in my life. What if I don't like her? Then we'll figure it out together. But I think you will like her. She seems very kind. What if she doesn't like me?" The question broke Ryan's heart. His beautiful, precious daughter was worried that someone might not like her, when the truth was that anyone who spent 5 minutes with Emma would be charmed by her quiet intelligence and gentle spirit. "Emma," Ryan said, cupping her small face in his hands, "it's impossible not to like you. You're smart and funny and kind and wonderful. Claire is going to think she won the lottery when she gets to be part of your life." A small smile flickered across Emma's face. "Promise, I promise." At 1:30, Ryan found himself in a small room off the main chapel, wearing his best dark suit and trying to ignore the way his hands were shaking. His cousin David knocked on the door and told him it was time. The chapel was filled with family and friends, maybe 50 people total. They all turned to look at him as he walked to the front, their faces wearing expressions of polite support mixed with concern. Everyone knew this wasn't a traditional love match, but they were trying to be encouraging for Emma's sake. Ryan took his place at the altar and focused on staying calm. This was just a legal formality, a practical arrangement that would benefit everyone involved. He didn't need to feel anything beyond basic human courtesy. The music started. Everyone stood. Ryan turned toward the back of the chapel, his heart beating faster than it should have been for something that was supposed to be purely business. The doors opened, and Claire appeared. She wore a simple white dress, nothing elaborate or expensive, just a classic A-line style with long sleeves and a modest neckline. A long veil covered her face, secured with a small crown of white flowers. She carried a bouquet of white roses and baby's breath. But even through the veil, Ryan could see that her hands were trembling. Claire walked down the aisle slowly, carefully, like she was concentrating on each step. The chapel was silent, except for the soft wedding march playing from the small organ. Ryan found himself studying her movement, the way she held her shoulders, something familiar about her posture that he couldn't quite identify. She reached the front and stood beside him. Through the veil he could see her breathing fast, shallow, clearly terrified. Whatever this arrangement meant to everyone else, it was taking enormous courage for Claire to go through with it. The officiant began speaking about marriage and commitment and the bonds that tie families together. Ryan didn't hear most of it. He was watching Claire, noticing the way her hands gripped the bouquet, the way her whole body trembled with nerves. "We now come to the unveiling of the bride," the officiant said. "Ryan, please lift Claire's veil." Ryan reached out, grasped the delicate fabric, and slowly lifted it back. The world stopped. He knew that face. Not from their recent meeting at the coffee shop. From somewhere else, somewhere deeper. A rainy night 2 years ago. A coffee shop about to close. A woman who had bought him tea when his hands were too cold to hold Emma properly. A stranger who had sat with him and asked nothing, expected nothing, just offered quiet company when he'd desperately needed it. The memory crashed over him like a wave. He'd been at his lowest point that night, walking the streets with Emma bundled against the cold because he couldn't bear to be in the house. The coffee shop had been warm and bright, and Emma had been fussy from teething. The woman at the corner table had approached them quietly. "Excuse me," she'd said. "I couldn't help but notice. Would you like some tea on me? You look like you could use something warm." Ryan had been too exhausted to refuse. She'd bought him chamomile tea and asked the barista to warm a bottle for Emma. Then she'd sat with them for an hour, not asking questions, not offering advice, just being present while Emma finally fell asleep. And Ryan felt something inside him unclench for the first time in months. He'd told her things he'd never told anyone, about the crushing weight of single parenthood, about feeling like he was failing Emma every single day, about the loneliness that felt like drowning. She'd listened without judgment, without trying to fix him, just witnessing his pain with quiet compassion. When Emma had woken up calm and content, the woman had smiled. "You're a good father," she'd said. "She's lucky to have you." Ryan had wanted to ask her name to thank her properly, but Emma had needed to get home, and when he'd looked back from the doorway, the woman was gone. He'd thought about her often over the past 2 years, the stranger who had shown him kindness when he'd most needed it, who had reminded him that there was still gentleness in the world. And now she was here, standing in front of him, about to become his wife. "Claire," he whispered. Recognition flooded her eyes. She'd remembered him too. Her lips moved, forming silent words he couldn't hear over the roaring in his ears. Everything he thought he knew about this day dissolved. This wasn't just an arrangement anymore. This wasn't just a contract between strangers. This was something else entirely. Something he wasn't prepared for. Something that terrified him. The officiant cleared his throat, waiting for the ceremony to continue. Ryan had missed his cue, missed the question, missed everything except the impossible coincidence that had just upended his understanding of fate and second chances. "I do," Ryan said roughly, though he wasn't sure what he was agreeing to anymore. The officiant turned to Claire. Her lips moved, but no sound came out at first. Then she tried again. "I do," she whispered. The rest blurred together in a haze of spoken vows and exchanged rings. Ryan slipped a simple gold band onto Claire's shaking hand, his mind reeling from the recognition that was changing everything about this day. The officiant pronounced them married. Ryan leaned forward and pressed his lips to Claire's forehead, brief and chaste, just as they'd agreed. But when he pulled back, he saw relief flash across her face, followed by something that looked like hope. They turned and walked back down the aisle together, Claire's hand resting lightly on his arm. He could feel her trembling through the fabric of his jacket. They reached the doors and stepped into the hallway, away from the watching eyes of their families. Claire immediately pulled her hand away and stepped back, creating distance between them. "You," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yeah. I didn't know. When they told me about the arrangement, they never mentioned your name. I didn't know it was you." Ryan studied her face, seeing her clearly now, without the veil. She looked different than she had 2 years ago. Thinner, more fragile, with shadows under her eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and constant worry. But it was definitely her. The woman who had listened while he talked about loss and loneliness, who had made him feel less alone for one precious hour. "Why did you agree to this?" Ryan asked. Claire looked at the floor. "My family needed help. Your family offered it. That's how these arrangements work." Her voice was carefully neutral, but Ryan could hear the pain underneath. Whatever had brought her to this point, it hadn't been a free choice. "We should go to the reception," Claire said. "People are waiting." They walked to the reception hall in silence, both processing the reality that had just shifted everything they thought they understood about this day. The reception hall was decorated with white flowers and silver ribbons. Round tables filled the space, and a small band played soft music in the corner. Guests mingled with champagne and polite conversation, all of them trying to pretend this was a normal wedding celebration. Ryan found Emma sitting with his mother wearing her light blue dress and white shoes. Her hair had been curled for the occasion, and she looked uncomfortable with all the attention. "Is it over, Emma?" asked when she saw Ryan. "The ceremony is," Ryan said, "but we have to stay for the party." Emma glanced at Claire, then back at Ryan. "Do I have to call her Mom now?" Ryan knelt down to Emma's level. "No, sweetheart. You can call her whatever feels right to you. What if nothing feels right?" Ryan didn't have an answer for that. He just pulled Emma into a hug, holding her close, while trying to process the impossible coincidence that had just changed everything. When he stood up, Claire was watching them with something soft and sad in her expression. She turned away quickly when their eyes met. The reception continued around them, cutting cake, taking photos, making polite conversation with relatives. But Ryan felt like he was moving through a dream, going through the motions, while his mind struggled to understand what any of this meant. At some point during the evening, his Aunt Patricia approached their table. She was a sharp-featured woman with strong opinions about everything, and she'd never been shy about expressing them. "Well," Patricia said, looking Claire up and down with obvious disapproval, "I suppose we'll have to make the best of this arrangement." Claire's shoulders tensed. "I'll do my best to be a good wife." Patricia laughed, but it wasn't a kind sound. "Dear, you're here because your family needed money. Let's not pretend this is anything more than a transaction." Ryan's jaw tightened. "That's enough." Patricia ignored him, leaning closer to Claire. "Just remember your place. You're here for the child's sake. Don't expect anything more than that. Don't expect him to actually care about you." Ryan watched Claire's face go pale, saw her hands grip the edge of the table until her knuckles went white. Something hot and protective surged through his chest. "I said that's enough," Ryan repeated, his voice harder this time. Patricia turned to him. "Oh, don't be dramatic. I'm just being honest." "The girl needs to understand the situation." "She's my wife," Ryan said. Standing up, his chair scraped against the floor, the sound cutting through the music and conversation. "Her name is Claire, and she deserves respect from everyone here." The room went quiet. Everyone was watching now, witnessing Ryan's first real show of emotion in 7 years. Patricia's eyes widened. "Ryan, I'm only trying to help." "You're not helping. You're being cruel, and I won't tolerate it." Patricia huffed and walked away, but Ryan barely noticed. He was looking at Claire, who was staring at him like she couldn't quite believe what had just happened. "You didn't have to do that," she said softly. "Yes, I did." "Why?" Ryan sat back down, suddenly exhausted. "Because it was right." The drive home from the reception was quiet. Emma had fallen asleep in the back seat, exhausted from the long day and all the adult emotions she'd been trying to navigate. Claire sat in the passenger seat, still wearing her wedding dress, staring out the window at the Seattle suburbs, passing by in the darkness. Ryan's mind was spinning with questions he didn't know how to ask. How had the woman who'd shown him kindness 2 years ago ended up married to him through an arranged agreement? What were the odds of such a coincidence? And what did it mean for the practical partnership they'd agreed to? When they reached the house, Ryan carried Emma inside while Claire followed quietly. The house felt different with 3 people in it. Fuller, but also more complicated. Ryan took Emma upstairs, helped her into pajamas, and tucked her into bed. She was still half asleep, but she mumbled something as he kissed her goodnight. "Is the lady going to stay now?" "Yes, sweetheart. She's going to stay." Okay, Emma whispered and drifted back to sleep. When Ryan came downstairs, he found Claire standing in the living room looking at the photographs on the mantel. Photos of Sarah covered every surface their wedding day, Sarah holding baby Emma. Family vacations, 7 years of memories carefully preserved. You don't have to move those, Ryan said quickly. Claire turned. I wasn't going to. This is your home, your history. I'm just... She paused, searching for the right word. I'm just a guest here. You're not a guest. You're my... Ryan stopped, not sure how to finish that sentence. Wife Claire said quietly. In name only. I know. I understand the arrangement. But as she said it, Ryan realized he wasn't sure he understood the arrangement anymore. Nothing about this felt like the practical partnership they'd discussed. Claire, he said, stepping closer. That night, 2 years ago at the coffee shop. I never got a chance to thank you properly. Claire wrapped her arms around herself. You don't need to thank me. I was just being human. You were being kind to a stranger who was falling apart. That's not just human, that's extraordinary. Claire looked uncomfortable with the praise. You needed help. I had the ability to help. It's not complicated. But Ryan remembered that night differently. He remembered how gently she'd approached them, how she'd somehow known exactly what he needed without making him ask for it. How she'd listened to him pour out his heart without offering platitudes or trying to fix him. Why didn't you tell me who you were when we met at the coffee shop for the arrangement discussion? I didn't think you'd remember me, Claire said simply. It was one night 2 years ago. You were in crisis. I didn't expect it to stick in your memory. The truth was, Ryan had thought about that night often. About the mysterious woman who'd appeared when he'd most needed kindness and disappeared before he could properly thank her. She'd been like an angel there when he needed her gone when her job was done. I should let you get settled, Ryan said. The guest room is upstairs, second door on the left. I put fresh towels in the bathroom across the hall. Claire nodded. Thank you. And Ryan. Thank you for what you did tonight. With your aunt. No one's ever stood up for me like that before. The sadness in her voice made Ryan's chest tighten. What kind of life had she lived where no one had ever defended her? You're part of this family now, he said. That means something. After Claire went upstairs, Ryan sat alone in the living room trying to process the day. He looked at Sarah's photo on the mantel, at her radiant smile. I don't know what you'd think about all this, he whispered to the empty room. I never expected to feel anything again. And I'm not sure I'm ready to. The next morning, Ryan woke to the smell of coffee brewing. He came downstairs to find Claire in the kitchen, already dressed, making breakfast. She'd found the waffle iron Sarah used to use on weekend mornings, and there was a neat stack of golden waffles on a plate. I wasn't sure what Emma liked, Claire said when she saw him. I found waffle mix in the pantry. Waffles are perfect. She loves waffles. Emma appeared in her pajamas, hair messy from sleep. She stopped when she saw Claire, suddenly shy. Good morning, Emma, Claire said gently. I made waffles. Would you like some? Emma nodded and climbed into her usual chair. Claire served her a waffle with butter and syrup, then poured orange juice into her favorite cup, the one with the princess on it that Sarah had bought at Disneyland. They ate breakfast in awkward silence. Ryan was hyper-aware of every sound, Claire's careful movements around the kitchen. Emma's quiet, eating the way the morning light fell across the table. Everything felt too loud and too significant. After breakfast, Claire offered to walk Emma to the bus stop. Emma looked to Ryan for permission, and he nodded. I'll see you after work, Ryan told Emma, kissing her forehead. Be good at school. When they were gone, Ryan stood alone in his kitchen, surrounded by the remnants of a family breakfast that had felt surprisingly normal. Claire had moved through the morning routine with quiet efficiency, anticipating Emma's needs without being told, maintaining a respectful distance while still being helpful. That evening, Ryan came home to find Claire and Emma sitting at the kitchen table with homework spread between them. Emma was working on math problems while Claire helped with patient explanations. If you have 3 groups of 4 apples, Claire was saying, how many apples do you have altogether? Emma counted on her fingers. 12. Exactly right. You're so smart. Ryan watched from the doorway as Emma beamed at the praise. When was the last time he'd seen his daughter look so pleased with herself? Hi, Daddy, Emma called when she noticed him. Claire is helping me with my homework. She's really good at math. I can see that Ryan said sitting down at the table. How was school? Emma launched into a detailed explanation of her day, what they'd learned in reading, who she'd played with at recess, what they'd served for lunch. She talked more in those 10 minutes than she had in weeks, animated and engaged in a way that made Ryan's chest tighten with something between gratitude and sadness. Was this how Emma was supposed to be? Talkative and enthusiastic and full of life. Had he been so lost in his own grief that he'd missed his daughter's natural personality being suppressed? After dinner, while Emma took her bath, Ryan and Claire cleaned the kitchen together. They moved around each other carefully, politely, like strangers sharing a small space. Emma seems to be adjusting well, Claire said, drying dishes while Ryan washed. She likes you, Ryan said. That's good. That's what we hoped for. She's a wonderful child. You've done an amazing job raising her. I've done my best, but sometimes I wonder if my best has been enough. Claire looked at him. Children need love and security above all else. She clearly has both. But as she said it, Ryan wondered if that was true. Emma had security, yes, but had she had love, real, demonstrative, joyful love, or had she just had survival routine, the basic necessities wrapped in grief-soaked quiet? That night, Ryan lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of someone else living in his house. Claire moving around in the guest room, water running in the bathroom, the settling of a home that now held 3 people instead of 2. For the first time in 7 years, he wasn't alone. The thought should have been comforting, but instead it filled him with a strange anxiety. Because being alone had been safe. Alone meant no one could leave again. Alone meant no risk of more loss. But Emma wasn't alone anymore either, and despite his complicated feelings about Claire's presence, he couldn't deny that his daughter seemed brighter, more engaged, more like the child she was supposed to be. Maybe that was worth the risk of feeling something again. Over the next week, Ryan watched Emma and Claire develop a tentative relationship that gradually grew warmer. It started with small things, Claire braiding Emma's hair for school, something Ryan had never mastered, despite YouTube tutorials and Emma's patient instruction. Emma showing Claire her favorite books, her rock collection, the art projects she'd been saving in a box under her bed. By the second week, Emma was chattering to Claire about her school friends, her teacher Mrs. Rodriguez, the boy named Tyler, who always stole crayons. Claire listened with genuine interest, asking follow-up questions and remembering details from previous conversations. Tommy brought his hamster to school today, Emma announced over dinner on Friday evening. Rodriguez let us take turns holding him. He was so soft and tiny, and his whiskers tickled my hands. What was the hamster's name? Claire asked. Mr. Nibbles. Which is perfect because he kept trying to nibble on my fingers. Emma giggled, a sound Ryan realized he hadn't heard enough of lately. Did you know Claire said that hamsters can store food in their cheeks? They have special pouches where they keep snacks for later. Emma's eyes went wide. Really? That's like having secret pockets for cookies, exactly like that. Nature is full of amazing adaptations. Ryan listened to their conversation, marveling at how naturally Claire engaged with Emma's 7-year-old perspective. She didn't talk down to Emma or dismiss her enthusiasm. She treated her like a complete person whose thoughts and observations mattered. After dinner, while Claire helped Emma with a school project about family traditions, Ryan cleaned the kitchen and found himself eavesdropping on their conversation. "What kinds of traditions do families have?" Emma asked. "Well," Claire said carefully, "every family is different. Some families have special meals on certain days. Some families have bedtime stories or weekend activities they do together. What traditions do you and your daddy have?" Emma was quiet for a moment, thinking. "We have pancakes on Saturday mornings," she said finally, "and we read books before bed, and we visit Mommy's grave on her birthday and tell her about everything that's happened." Ryan's chest tightened. He hadn't realized Emma thought of their grief rituals as traditions. "Those sound like beautiful traditions," Claire said softly. "Especially visiting your mummy. It's important to remember people we love who aren't with us anymore. Do you have people you remember like that?" "My parents died when I was young," Claire said. "I visit them sometimes and tell them about my life. It helps me feel close to them. Did it make you sad for a really long time?" "Yes, it did. Sometimes it still makes me sad. But I've learned that being sad doesn't mean we can't also be happy about other things." Ryan found himself leaning against the doorframe, listening to Claire navigate Emma's questions with gentle honesty. "Daddy's been sad about Mummy for a really long time," Emma said quietly. "Sometimes I think he forgot how to be happy." "Your daddy loves you very much," Claire said. "Sometimes when people love someone who's gone, they worry that being happy might mean they're forgetting. But I think the people we love would want us to be happy. Do you think Mommy would want Daddy to be happy? I think any mother would want her family to have joy and laughter and good memories. Love doesn't end when someone goes to heaven. It just changes form." That night, after Emma was asleep, Ryan found Claire sitting on the back porch with a cup of tea. The October air was crisp, and she had a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. "Mind if I join you?" he asked. Claire nodded, and Ryan sat down in the chair beside her. For a few minutes they sat in comfortable silence, listening to the distant sounds of the neighborhood settling for the night. "Thank you, Ryan," said finally. "For what?" "For the way you talked to Emma tonight, about traditions and remembering people we love. You handled her questions beautifully." Claire wrapped the blanket tighter around herself. She's trying to understand some pretty big concepts for a 7-year-old. Loss and grief and how families work. "She asked if you think Sarah would want me to be happy," Ryan said quietly. "What do you think Ryan was quiet for a long time?" "I think you're right. I think Sarah would want Emma to grow up in a house with laughter. I think she'd want Emma to have someone who could braid her hair and help with homework and listen to stories about hamsters named Mr. Nibbles. And what would she want for you?" The question hung in the air between them. Ryan had spent 7 years believing he knew the answer, that Sarah would want him to honor her memory through permanent grief, through faithful devotion to the past. But sitting here beside Claire, watching the way his daughter had come alive over the past 2 weeks, he wasn't sure anymore. "I don't know," he admitted. "For a long time, I thought she'd want me to remember her by staying frozen in the moment we lost her. But maybe that's not remembering her. Maybe that's just hiding from life." 3 weeks after the wedding, Emma came home from school with an announcement that changed everything. "We're doing family portraits next week," she told Ryan and Claire over dinner. "Everyone in my class is going to bring a picture of their family to make a display on the wall." Ryan felt his stomach clench. "What kind of picture do you want to bring?" "Sweetheart." Emma looked back and forth between Ryan and Claire. "Can we take a new one, with all 3 of us?" The request was simple, innocent, logical, but it hit Ryan like a physical blow. A family portrait with Claire would make their arrangement official, public, real, in a way that the legal marriage somehow hadn't. "Of course we can," Claire said gently, glancing at Ryan. "If that's what you want." "It is," Emma said firmly. "I want everyone to see my whole family." That Saturday they went to a photography studio in the mall. Ryan felt awkward and self-conscious as the photographer positioned them. Ryan in the center, Emma on his lap, Claire standing behind them with her hand on Ryan's shoulder. "Perfect," the photographer said. "Now let's try one with everyone sitting. Claire, would you move closer to Ryan?" "Emma, you can sit between them." As they arranged themselves on the small bench, Ryan was hyper-aware of Claire's presence beside him. The way she smelled like vanilla and books. The way she held herself carefully, still not quite believing she belonged in the picture. Emma, the photographer, said, "Can you scoot a little closer to Claire?" Emma immediately moved over, leaning against Claire's side. Without thinking, Claire wrapped her arm around Emma, and Emma smiled a real, bright, uninhibited smile. "Beautiful," the photographer said, snapping away. "Now one more with everyone looking at me and smiling." Ryan tried to smile, but felt like his face might crack from the effort. This was supposed to be a practical arrangement, a business partnership, but sitting here with Claire's hand on his shoulder and Emma nestled between them, it felt like something else entirely. When they got the proofs back, Ryan was stunned by what he saw. They looked like a real family. Emma's joy was radiant. Claire looked naturally maternal and protective, and Ryan looked like a man who was beginning to remember what happiness felt like. "Which one do you want to bring to school?" Claire asked Emma. Emma studied the photos carefully. "This one," she said, pointing to the picture where she was leaning against Claire. "Because we all look happy." That night, Ryan couldn't stop looking at the photograph. His daughter looked like a different child, bright, engaged, surrounded by love instead of careful quiet. And Claire looked like she belonged with them, like she'd always been part of their story. For the first time since Sarah's death, Ryan allowed himself to imagine what it might be like to have a real family again. Not a replacement for what he'd lost, but something new, something different, something that honored the past, while still allowing room for the future. The thought terrified him, but it also filled him with something he'd almost forgotten, how to feel hope. A month after the wedding, Ryan's morning routine changed without him consciously deciding to change it. He found himself staying in the kitchen after making coffee, scrolling through emails, or reading the news on his phone, waiting. When Claire appeared at the bottom of the stairs, still sleepy and wrapped in her robe, something in his chest relaxed. "You don't have to wait," Claire said the first morning he lingered past his usual departure time. "I wasn't waiting," Ryan replied automatically. But they both knew he was lying. The truth was starting his day without seeing. Claire had begun to feel wrong, incomplete. Her presence had become part of his routine, as essential as coffee or checking the weather. Over breakfast, they developed an easy rhythm. Claire would make pancakes or eggs while Ryan packed Emma's lunch. Emma would chatter about her plans for the day, while both adults listened with the focused attention that children deserved, but didn't always receive. "Mrs. Rodriguez is teaching us about the solar system," Emma announced one morning, syrup dripping from her fork. "Did you know that Jupiter has a storm that's been going on for hundreds of years? The Great Red Spot," Claire said, refilling Emma's orange juice. "It's bigger than our entire planet." "Really?" Emma's eyes went wide. "How do you know about space?" "I studied astronomy in college. I wanted to be a planetarium director for a while." "What's a planetarium?" "It's like a theater, but instead of watching movies, you watch the stars. They project images of the night sky on the ceiling, and you can learn about constellations and planets." Emma turned to Ryan with excitement. "Can we go to a planetarium sometime?" "Sure, sweetheart. I'll look up where the nearest one is." But as he said it, Ryan realized he'd automatically included Claire in the plans. Somewhere along the way, "we" had stopped meaning just him and Emma, and started meaning all three of them. That evening, while Emma was taking her bath, Ryan found himself helping Claire with dinner preparation. Not because she needed help, but because he wanted to be near her. They moved around the kitchen with increasing comfort, passing salt and pepper without asking, reaching around each other for ingredients, developing the kind of domestic choreography that usually took couples years to perfect. "Emma seems happier?" Claire said, stirring sauce while Ryan chopped vegetables. "She does. She's more herself, I think. More like the child she's supposed to be. She was always herself. She was just being careful not to add to your burden." Ryan's knife stilled. "What do you mean?" Claire turned to face him. "Children are incredibly perceptive. Emma knew you were struggling, so she made herself smaller, quieter, easier to manage. She was protecting you." The words hit Ryan like cold water. "You think she was suppressing her personality for my sake? I think she's a loving child who wanted to take care of her father. But children shouldn't have to take care of their parents' emotional needs. They should be free to be children." Ryan set down his knife, feeling something crack open in his chest. "I never wanted her to feel responsible for my feelings. I know you didn't. But grief is loud even when we try to keep it quiet. Emma felt it, and she responded by trying not to make it worse." "How do you know all this?" Claire was quiet for a moment. "Because I did the same thing when my parents died. I became very good at being what other people needed me to be, at not adding to anyone's problems. It's a survival skill, but it's exhausting." Ryan studied her face, seeing her clearly in a way he hadn't before. "Is that what you're doing now? Being what we need you to be? I'm trying to figure out who I am when I'm not responsible for keeping everyone else afloat." The honesty in her voice made Ryan's heart ache. What would that look like? Being yourself instead of what everyone needs? Claire smiled, but it was tinged with sadness. "I don't know. I've been taking care of other people since I was 21. I'm not sure who I am when I'm just me." That night, Ryan lay in bed thinking about what Claire had said, about Emma making herself smaller to protect him, about Claire losing herself in the needs of others, about the way both of them had learned to live carefully, taking up as little space as possible. The next morning, Ryan made a decision. Instead of leaving for work at his usual time, he suggested they all walk Emma to school together. Really, Emma's face lit up. All three of us, Ryan confirmed. They walked the 6 blocks to Maple Elementary in the crisp October air. Emma skipping between them, chattering about the spelling test she was nervous about and the book report she was excited to present. Other parents were making the same journey, and several waved or called out greetings. "Good morning," Emma called Mrs. Chen, whose daughter Sophie was in Emma's class. "And you must be Emma's new stepmother." "I'm Lin Chen." Ryan tensed, waiting to see how Claire would respond to the assumption. "I'm Claire," Claire said warmly, shaking Lin's hand. "It's nice to meet you. Emma talks about you all the time in carpool. She's so excited to have you in her life." After Lin walked away, Ryan glanced at Claire. "You handled that well. She seems nice." "And she's right. Emma does talk about me. How do you feel about being called Emma's stepmother?" Claire was quiet for a moment. "Honored, terrified, like I'm trying to fill shoes that are too big for me." "You're not trying to fill anyone's shoes. You're just being yourself." "Am I? I'm still not sure who that is." When they reached the school, Emma hugged both of them goodbye. "Thank you for walking with me," she said seriously. "I liked having both my parents here." Both my parents. The words echoed in Ryan's head all day. That evening, Ryan's mother called during dinner. "Ryan, I wanted to check in and see how everyone is adjusting," Margaret said. "How are things going with Claire?" Ryan glanced across the table at Claire, who was helping Emma with a math problem. "Things are going well. Better than I expected." "And Emma?" "She's accepting the situation." "More than accepting it. She's thriving. I'm so glad. I was worried that the arrangement might feel forced or artificial, but it sounds like it's working for everyone. After he hung up, Claire looked at him curiously. Your family checks in often. They worry. They want to make sure we're all okay. Are we okay? Ryan considered the question seriously. A month ago, he would have said they were surviving, adapting, making the best of a practical situation. But looking at Claire now, at the way Emma leaned trustingly against her side, at the comfortable atmosphere that had settled over their dinner table, he realized something had shifted. Yeah, he said, surprised by the truth of it. I think we are okay. More than okay, actually. That night, for the first time since the wedding, Claire joined Ryan on the back porch after Emma went to bed. She brought 2 cups of tea, settling in the chair beside him with a blanket across her knees. I've been thinking about what you said, Ryan said. About Emma making herself smaller to protect me. About you not knowing who you are when you're not taking care of everyone else. And I think I've been doing the same thing. Living smaller, feeling less, trying not to disturb the perfect shrine I built to my grief. Claire sipped her tea, waiting for him to continue. Sarah used to say that life was meant to be lived fully with both hands and an open heart. She would have hated what I became after she died. She would have hated seeing Emma learn to live carefully. What would she have wanted instead? Ryan thought about Sarah's laugh, the way she'd danced in the kitchen while making dinner, how she'd filled every room with energy and joy. She would have wanted Emma to be loud and messy and demanding. She would have wanted her to take up space, to know she deserved attention and love and celebration. And what would she have wanted for you? The question that had haunted him for a month. Ryan looked at Claire, at this woman who had somehow become essential to his daily happiness without him noticing. I think, he said slowly, she would have wanted me to live again. Not to forget her, but to honor her by not wasting the life she couldn't finish. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars appear in the darkening sky. Finally, Claire said, I've never been in love. The admission surprised Ryan. Never. I've never had the luxury of falling in love. There was always a crisis, always someone who needed taking care of, always a reason why my feelings had to come second. What about now? Claire looked at him, her expression unreadable in the darkness. Now I'm married to a man who arranged our partnership for practical reasons, a man who's still in love with his deceased wife, a man who's made it clear that emotional complications aren't part of our agreement. Claire. It's okay, she said quickly. I'm not complaining. I knew what this was when I agreed to it. I wonder sometimes what it would feel like to be someone's first choice instead of their practical solution. The pain in her voice cut through Ryan like a blade. Because she was right. He had married her for practical reasons. He had made it clear that this was a business arrangement. But sitting here beside her, listening to her honest vulnerability, he realized something had changed. Somewhere along the way, Claire had stopped being a practical solution and started being something else, something that felt dangerously close to necessary. Claire, he said softly, I need to tell you something. She looked at him, waiting. You're not just a practical solution anymore. You haven't been for a while. What am I, then? Ryan searched for words that could capture what he was feeling without promising more than he was ready to give. You're someone I look forward to seeing every morning. Someone whose opinion matters to me. Someone who's made my daughter happier than I've seen her in years. Someone who's made me remember what it feels like to live instead of just survive. Claire's eyes filled with tears. Ryan, I'm not ready to call it love yet, he said honestly. But I'm not ready to call it nothing either. They sat there in the darkness, the space between them charged with possibility and fear, and the delicate hope that maybe, just maybe, they were building something real. 2 weeks later, Claire moved her belongings from the guest room to Ryan's bedroom. The transition happened gradually. Practically first just keeping some clothes in the larger closet, then moving her books to the bedside table, finally bringing her pillow and the quilt her grandmother had made. They still slept in separate beds. Ryan had moved a twin bed into the master bedroom, arranging the furniture. So they each had their own space while sharing the room. It was a compromise that acknowledged their growing closeness while respecting the boundaries they weren't ready to cross. "This feels strange," Claire said the first night, sitting on her bed, while Ryan read in his. "Good strange or bad strange? Different strange. Like we're pretending to be a real married couple. What would a real married couple do differently?" Claire considered the question. Talk more, I think. Share their thoughts about the day. Ask each other's opinions about things. We do that already. Do we? We talk about Emma and household logistics and safe surface things. But I don't know what you think about when you're driving to work, or what you worry about at night, or what you dream about. Ryan set down his book and looked at her. What do you want to know? Everything. What you were like before Sarah died, what you wanted to be when you grew up, what makes you laugh, what scares you. It was an invitation to real intimacy, the kind Ryan had been avoiding for 7 years. But looking at Claire, at this woman who had somehow become central to his daily happiness, he found himself wanting to answer. "I used to want to be a teacher," he said. "Elementary school like Emma's age. I loved the idea of helping kids discover they were smarter than they thought they were. What changed? Sarah got pregnant, and I needed better insurance, more stable income. So I went into accounting instead. It was practical, responsible, the right thing to do for our family." "Do you regret it?" Ryan thought about that. "I regret that I never got to find out if I would have been good at it. But I don't regret prioritizing my family." That felt like love. Claire curled up on her side, facing him. "What else? I used to play guitar. Badly, but enthusiastically. Sarah said I sounded like a cat being strangled, but she'd dance anyway when I played. Where's your guitar now, Closet? I put it away after she died. It reminded me too much of her dancing. Maybe you could play again sometime. For Emma. Maybe." Ryan studied Claire's face in the soft lamplight. "What about you? What did you dream about before life got complicated?" "I wanted to open a bookstore," Claire said without hesitation. "One of those cozy places with reading nooks and coffee and author events. I wanted to create a space where people could find exactly the book they needed, even if they didn't know they needed it." "That sounds perfect for you." "It was a silly dream. Books are a luxury most people can't afford. Dreams aren't silly. And books aren't luxuries, they're necessities for the soul." Something in Claire's expression softened. "Sarah sounds like she was wonderful." "She was. But she's gone, and you're here, and I'm starting to think that's not a coincidence." They talked until nearly midnight, sharing stories and fears and fragments of their inner lives. When they finally turned off the lights, the space between their beds felt charged with new understanding. The next morning brought their first real test as a family unit. Emma woke up with a fever and couldn't go to school. Ryan had an important client meeting he couldn't reschedule, and Claire had a job interview for a part-time position at the local library. "I can cancel," Claire said immediately. "Emma needs someone here." "No," Ryan said firmly. "This interview is important. You've been excited about it all week, but you have that presentation." "We'll figure it out together," Ryan interrupted. "That's what partnerships are for." They worked out a solution. Ryan would work from home in the morning, while Claire went to her interview. Then Claire would take over when she returned, so Ryan could go to his afternoon meeting. It was the kind of collaborative problem-solving that required trust and flexibility. Claire's interview went well. She returned home to find Ryan at the kitchen table with his laptop while Emma napped on the couch nearby. "How is she?" Claire asked, automatically checking Emma's forehead for fever. Temperature's down. She had some soup and juice, and she's been sleeping peacefully. Claire looked at the makeshift sick day setup tissues and medicine organized on the coffee table. Emma's favorite blanket tucked around her, a book ready for when she woke up. You did this perfectly, she said. I wouldn't have done anything differently. I've had practice. She got sick a lot when she was younger. But as Claire settled in to take over Emma's care, Ryan realized something had changed. He wasn't relieved to hand off the responsibility he was reluctant to leave. He liked taking care of Emma. With Claire, liked the way they worked together, liked feeling like they were a team. I don't have to go to this meeting, he said. I could stay and help. Go, Claire said gently. We'll be fine. Emma and I will probably just watch movies and eat ice cream. That sounds perfect for a sick day. When Ryan returned that evening, he found Claire and Emma asleep together on the couch, an animated movie playing softly on the television. Emma was curled against Claire's side, and Claire had her arm protectively around Emma's shoulders. They looked like a real mother and daughter. Not like a stepmother and stepdaughter, not like an arrangement or a practical partnership. Like a family. Ryan stood in the doorway for a long moment, memorizing the scene. When had Claire become so essential to their happiness? When had the thought of losing her started to feel unbearable? The next weekend, they attended Emma's school fall festival together. They walked through the carnival booths, played games, ate cotton candy, and posed for pictures with other families. Several people commented on how happy Emma looked, how well Claire fit into their family dynamic. She's good for you both, said Mrs. Rodriguez, Emma's teacher. Emma's confidence has really blossomed since you married Claire. That evening, while Emma played in her room, Ryan found himself watching Claire clean up after dinner with a strange intensity. You're staring, Claire said, without looking up from loading the dishwasher. Sorry, I was just thinking. About what? About how this happened. How you went from being a stranger to being... He paused, searching for the right word. To being what Ryan moved closer, close enough to see the flecks of gold in her brown eyes. To being someone I can't imagine living without. Claire's breath caught. Ryan, I know we said this was practical. I know we agreed there wouldn't be complications. But I need you to know that this stopped being just an arrangement for me weeks ago. When maybe that first morning when you made waffles. Maybe when you defended Emma's right to take up space. Maybe when you moved into my bedroom, and it felt like you belonged there. He touched her hand gently. I don't know exactly when it happened, but somewhere along the way you became essential. Claire looked up at him, her eyes bright with tears, and something that looked like hope. I'm scared, she whispered. Of what? Of believing this is real, of letting myself care about you and Emma and then losing everything again. Ryan understood that fear better than most. I'm scared too, but I'm more scared of wasting this chance because I'm too afraid to try. They stood there in the kitchen, surrounded by the detritus of a family dinner, holding hands, and acknowledging that their practical arrangement had become something neither of them had planned on. Something that felt dangerously, wonderfully like love. On a rainy Saturday morning in November, Ryan suggested they visit the coffee shop where he and Claire had first met. Emma was spending the night with her cousin at Jennifer's house, giving Ryan and Claire a rare day alone together. Are you sure? Claire asked. It might be awkward going back there. I want to go back, Ryan said. I want to understand what happened that night, why it meant so much to both of us. The Grind coffee shop was exactly as Ryan remembered it, warm and cozy with mismatched furniture and the smell of fresh pastry in the air. They found a table in the corner, the same area where Claire had approached him 2.5 years ago. I almost didn't come in that night, Claire said, wrapping her hands around her coffee cup. It was late, and the place was obviously closing soon, but I saw you through the window and you looked desperate, broken, like you were barely holding on. and you had this tiny baby who was crying and you seemed so lost. Ryan remembered that night clearly now. Emma had been teething fussy for days. He'd been walking the streets because the motion sometimes calmed her, but he'd been soaked by rain and exhausted beyond reason. I was at the end of my rope, he admitted. I'd been averaging 3 hours of sleep a night for weeks. I couldn't get Emma to stop crying, and I was starting to think I was failing her in every possible way. What made you stay when I offered to buy you tea? You didn't ask questions. You didn't offer advice or tell me it would get better. You just saw that I needed help and offered it without making me feel like a charity case. Claire smiled. I remember thinking you were the most devoted father I'd ever seen. Even exhausted and overwhelmed, you held Emma like she was the most precious thing in the world. What were you doing there that night? It was almost closing time. Claire's expression grew serious. I was running away. I'd just come from a meeting with Tyler Morrison, the man my family owed money to. He'd made it clear that the debt was becoming unmanageable, and he'd suggested there might be another way for me to help my family. Ryan felt cold understanding wash over him. He wanted you to marry him. He didn't say it directly that night, but the implication was clear, and I knew that eventually he would make it an ultimatum. So I was planning to disappear. Leave Jake to handle the debt however he could and just vanish. But you didn't. No. I saw you with Emma, and I thought, here's this man who's been broken by life, but he's still fighting. He's still trying to be what his daughter needs, even when it's impossible. Claire's eyes filled with tears. If he could keep going, maybe I could too. Ryan reached across the table and took her hand. You saved my life that night. What do you mean I was drowning in grief and exhaustion and the terrible fear that I wasn't enough for Emma? You reminded me that kindness still existed in the world. You listened to me pour out my heart without judgment, and you made me feel less alone than I had since Sarah died. Claire squeezed his hand. I thought about you often over the next 2 years. I wondered what happened to you and Emma, whether you were okay. I kept hoping I'd run into you somewhere. And instead we ended up married to each other. What are the odds of something like that happening? Ryan considered the question seriously. Maybe it's not about odds. Maybe it's about fate or timing or the universe putting people in each other's paths when they need them most. Do you really believe that I'm starting to? Because I can't accept that meeting you that night was random or that you ending up as my arranged bride was just coincidence. There's something bigger at work here. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the rain streak down the windows. Finally, Claire said, I need to tell you something. What I've been falling in love with you. Not with the arrangement or the security or the practical benefits, with you. The man who makes terrible dad jokes and worries about Emma's homework and remembers exactly how I like my coffee. Ryan felt something break open in his chest. Claire. I know you're not ready to hear that. I know you're still grieving Sarah, and I would never ask you to love me the way you loved her. But I needed you to know that for me this stopped being practical a long time ago. Ryan stood up abruptly, and for a moment Claire thought he was going to walk away. Instead, he moved around the table and knelt beside her chair, taking both her hands in his. I'm falling in love with you too, he said quietly. It terrifies me because I thought that part of my heart was dead. But you've brought it back to life, and I don't want to waste this chance because I'm too scared to risk feeling something real again. Claire's eyes overflowed. Really, really. You've made Emma happier than I've seen her since she was a baby. You've made me remember what it feels like to look forward to tomorrow instead of just surviving today. You've made our house feel like a home again. Ryan leaned forward and kissed her soft and careful and full of all the emotions he'd been afraid to acknowledge. When they broke apart, both were crying. What happens now? Claire whispered. Now we go home to our daughter and we stop pretending this is just an arrangement. Now we build something real together. They sat there for another hour talking about the future with a freedom they'd never allowed themselves before. They talked about Emma's needs, about their own dreams, about what it might look like to love each other openly instead of carefully. When they finally left the coffee shop, Ryan took Claire's hand as they walked to the car. It was the first time they'd held hands in public, the first time they'd allowed themselves to look like a real couple. "I love you," Claire said as they reached their car. "I love you too," Ryan replied, and the words felt like coming home. That evening they told Emma about their feelings over dinner. "We want you to know," Ryan said carefully, "that Claire and I have realized we care about each other as more than just partners helping to raise you." Emma looked back and forth between them with serious blue eyes. "You mean like you're really married now? Not just pretend married?" "Something like that," Claire said gently. "How do you feel about that?" Emma considered the question with the gravity she brought to all important matters. "I think it's good. I like it when you're happy together, and I like having a real family instead of just people who live in the same house." "Are you sure?" Ryan asked. "If this makes you uncomfortable, we can—" Daddy's Emma interrupted. "I've been waiting for you to figure this out for weeks. Claire makes you smile for real, not just the pretend smile you use when you think I'm not looking." Ryan and Claire exchanged glances once again, amazed by Emma's perceptiveness. "So, you're okay with this?" Claire asked. "I'm more than okay," Emma said. "I'm happy. Finally, we're all happy at the same time." That night, for the first time since their wedding, Ryan and Claire fell asleep in the same bed. Not because they had to, not because it was expected, but because they wanted to. Because they loved each other and were ready to stop being afraid of that love. As Ryan drifted off with Claire's head on his shoulder, he thought about Sarah and whether she would approve of this development. He imagined her smiling, pleased that Emma had a mother figure and that Ryan had found someone who could make him laugh again. Love didn't replace love, he realized. It just expanded the heart's capacity to hold more. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm over the next month. Ryan and Claire stopped pretending their marriage was purely practical and began building something real together. Emma thrived in the security of a truly united family, and for the first time since Sarah's death, Ryan felt like he was living rather than merely surviving. That's when the phone calls started. The first one came on a Tuesday evening while they were cleaning up after dinner. Claire answered without looking at the caller ID, expecting it to be Jennifer or Ryan's mother. Hello, silence. Then a hang-up. Telemarketer Ryan asked, seeing Claire's confused expression. Probably, Claire said, but something in her voice suggested she wasn't convinced. The second call came 2 days later this time, while Claire was home alone. Emma was at school and Ryan was at work. Again, silence followed by a hang-up. But this time, Claire thought she heard breathing before the line went dead. She didn't mention it to Ryan. There was no point in worrying him over what was probably nothing. The third call came on Saturday morning while they were making pancakes together. This time, Ryan answered. Collins residence? Click. That's the third hang-up this week, Claire said, her voice carefully neutral. Ryan looked at her sharply. Third, I didn't want to worry you. It's probably just spam calls. But even as she said it, Claire felt the familiar anxiety she'd carried for years beginning to creep back into her chest. She told herself she was being paranoid. Tyler Morrison had no reason to look for her now. She was married, settled, protected by Ryan's family and social connections. There was no way Tyler could reach her here. Still, she found herself checking the locks twice before bed and looking over her shoulder when she walked Emma to school. The following Monday, Ryan came home from work to find Claire sitting at the kitchen table with Emma's homework spread between them, but she wasn't helping with math problems. She was staring out the window with the distant expression he remembered from their early weeks together. Everything okay? He asked, kissing her cheek. Fine, Claire said quickly, snapping back to attention. Emma's working on fractions. But Ryan noticed that Claire's hands were trembling slightly as she helped Emma with the problems. And that night, she tossed and turned in bed, jerking awake at every small sound. Claire Ryan said softly around midnight, "What's wrong?" "Nothing. Just having trouble sleeping. Talk to me." Claire was quiet for so long that Ryan thought she'd fallen asleep. Then she said, "I keep thinking I see someone watching the house, which is ridiculous because there's no one there. I'm just being paranoid." Ryan sat up. "What kind of someone?" "It's nothing. Just shadows, probably. My imagination." But the next day, Ryan made a point of driving by the house during his lunch break. He didn't see anything unusual, but he did notice that Mrs. Patterson next door was working in her garden. Afternoon, Mrs. Patterson Ryan called, getting out of his car. "Beautiful day." "Oh, hello, Ryan. Yes, lovely weather for November. Have you noticed anyone unusual in the neighborhood lately? Anyone who doesn't seem to belong?" Mrs. Patterson paused in her weeding. "Funny you should ask. There was a man yesterday sitting in a car across the street for quite a while. I thought maybe he was waiting for someone, but he never got out. Just sat there watching the houses." Ryan felt cold understanding wash over him. What did he look like? Older gentleman, maybe late 30s? Dark hair. Expensive car, one of those luxury sedans. I didn't think much of it at the time, but now that you mention it, it was a bit odd. That evening, Ryan installed location sharing on all their phones. He showed Claire and Emma how to use it, framing it as a safety precaution. If anything ever happens, he told Emma, "You can check this app to see where Claire and I are. And we can see where you are." "Like a family tracking system?" Emma asked. "Exactly like that." Claire watched the demonstration with growing anxiety. "Ryan, is this really necessary?" "It's just being careful," Ryan said. But privately he was more worried than he wanted to admit. 2 days later the calls escalated. This time when Claire answered, there was a voice on the other end. "Hello, Claire." The voice was calm, polite, familiar. Claire's blood turned to ice. "Tyler, you sound surprised. Did you really think you could disappear forever?" Claire sank into a kitchen chair, her legs suddenly unable to support her. "How did you find me?" "It wasn't difficult. Marriage licenses are public records. Collins is a fairly uncommon surname in Seattle. It just took some patience. What do you want?" "The same thing I've always wanted. What your family owes me. Plus interest, of course. It's been accumulating for quite some time now. I don't owe you anything. That debt was Jake's responsibility." Tyler's laugh was soft and cold. "Oh, Claire, you still don't understand how this works. Family debt is family debt. And since you're the one who ran away from our arrangement, you're the one responsible for making it right. I'm married now. I'm not available for whatever sick arrangement you had in mind. Marriage can be dissolved, especially when the husband learns some uncomfortable truths about his wife's past." The threat was subtle but clear. Tyler could destroy her life with Ryan and Emma if he chose to. "Leave my family alone," Claire said, fighting to keep her voice steady. "Your family. How quickly we forget our loyalties. Tell me, Claire, does your husband know about the debt? Does he know you married him to escape your obligations?" "That's not why I married him, isn't it? Because from where I sit, it looks like you used him for protection and security. I wonder how he'd feel knowing his wife is a fraud." The line went dead. Claire sat in the kitchen for a long time, staring at the phone. Tyler had found her. After 2.5 years of freedom, he'd tracked her down and was ready to destroy everything she'd built. When Ryan came home that evening, Claire was making dinner with mechanical efficiency, but her face was pale and her hands shook slightly as she stirred the sauce. "How was your day?" Ryan asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "Fine." Claire said, leaning into his warmth while terror consumed her from the inside out. She couldn't tell him about Tyler's call. Not yet. She needed time to think, to figure out how to protect her family from the man who'd been hunting her for years. That night, Claire lay awake, listening to Ryan breathe beside her, and Emma's occasional sleep sounds from down the hall. Her family. The people she loved more than her own life. The people Tyler Morrison was now threatening because she'd dared to find happiness. She thought about running again, disappearing in the middle of the night, leaving a note explaining that she was protecting them by leaving. It had worked before. Tyler had no interest in hurting innocent people. He just wanted to hurt her. But then she thought about Emma's face when she talked about finally having a complete family, about Ryan's growing capacity for joy and laughter, about the life they'd built together, fragile but real. She couldn't run. Not again. Not from this family that had become her whole world, but she also couldn't let Tyler destroy them, which left her with only one option she had to face him. Somehow she had to end this once and for all before he could hurt the people she loved. The decision terrified her, but as she watched Ryan sleep peacefully beside her, she knew she would do whatever it took to protect him and Emma, even if it meant sacrificing herself in the process. The call came during Ryan's Tuesday morning meeting with the Morrison account, an ironic coincidence that would haunt him later. His phone buzzed insistently on the conference table until he finally excused himself to check it. Mr. Collins. This is Principal Martinez at Maple Elementary. I need you to come to the school immediately. Ryan's blood turned cold. Is Emma hurt? Emma is physically fine, but there's been an incident. A man claiming to be a family relative tried to pick her up from school. Our security procedures prevented any harm, but I think you should come right away. Ryan was in his car before the call ended, his heart hammering against his ribs. He called Claire while driving, but it went straight to voicemail. He tried again. Still voicemail. When he arrived at the school, he found Claire's car already in the parking lot. She stood near the main entrance, perfectly still, her face white as paper. A man in an expensive suit was speaking with Principal Martinez nearby, his posture relaxed and confident. The man turned as Ryan approached, and Ryan got his first look at Tyler Morrison. He was smaller than Ryan had expected, maybe 5'10", with dark hair, and the kind of smooth, practiced smile that never reached his eyes. Tyler said, as if Ryan's arrival was a pleasant surprise. You must be the husband. Tyler Morrison. He extended his hand as if they were meeting at a business function. Ryan ignored the offered handshake. Where's Emma inside with her teacher? Principal Martinez said. She's fine, Mr. Collins. A bit confused, but unharmed. What happened? This gentleman arrived around noon claiming to be Emma's uncle through her late mother's side. He had identification and seemed very knowledgeable about family details. However, our policy requires written permission from both parents for any non-custodial pickup. Tyler's smile widened. A simple misunderstanding. Family dynamics can be so complicated, can't they? Ryan felt rage building in his chest like a physical force. You're not family. You have no connection to Sarah or to Emma. Don't I? Tyler glanced at Claire, who had still not moved or spoken. I think your wife and I have quite a significant connection. Don't we? Claire. Claire finally found her voice. Leave them alone. This is between you and me. Is it? Because from where I stand, your husband and stepdaughter are very much part of our equation now. Principal Martinez looked confused. Do you all know each other? We're old friends, Tyler said smoothly. Very old friends. In fact, Claire's family and I have been doing business together for years. The way he said business made Ryan's skin crawl. I think this conversation should continue elsewhere, Ryan said coldly. Away from the school. Of course. I wouldn't want to upset the children. Tyler glanced toward the building where Emma was presumably waiting. Beautiful little girl, by the way. She has her mother's eyes. The casual threat in his tone made Ryan step forward. Fists clenched. Tyler didn't retreat, just smiled that empty smile. Mr. Collins' Principal Martinez intervened. Perhaps you should take Emma home for the day. We can discuss additional security measures tomorrow. Ryan wanted to grab Tyler by the throat and demand answers, but Emma needed to see that he was safe and in control. Fine. I'm taking my family home. Family, Tyler repeated softly. How precious. As Ryan went inside to collect Emma, he heard Tyler say to Claire, We'll talk soon. Very soon. Emma ran into Ryan's arms the moment she saw him. Daddy. A scary man said he was my uncle, but I don't have uncles. You did exactly right, sweetheart. You should never go with anyone unless Claire or I have told you it's okay. I told Mrs. Rodriguez I didn't know him, and she called the principal. That was very smart. But as Ryan held his daughter, he could see Tyler through the window still talking to Claire. Whatever he was saying made Claire look like she might collapse. By the time Ryan got Emma to the car, Tyler was gone. Claire stood alone in the parking lot, staring at nothing. Claire, Ryan called. She turned toward them, her face a mask of terror and guilt. They drove home in silence, Emma chattering nervously about the strange man, while Claire stared out the passenger window. Ryan waited until Emma was occupied with her afternoon snack before confronting Claire. Kitchen. Now. Claire followed him, moving like someone walking to her execution. Who is Tyler Morrison? Ryan demanded. The man my family owes money to. How much money? Claire's voice was barely audible. $500,000, plus interest. Ryan felt the world tilt sideways. $500,000 Jake made some bad investment decisions after our parents died. He borrowed from the wrong people. Tyler was one of them. And Tyler wants what? The money back. Claire laughed, but it was hollow and broken. He wants me. He's always wanted me. The debt was just his way of ensuring I had no choice. What do you mean he wants you? He wants me to marry him, to belong to him. He made that clear 2.5 years ago, which is why I ran. Ryan stared at her pieces falling into place. The night we met at the coffee shop, you were running from him. I was planning to disappear completely. Start over somewhere he couldn't find me. But you didn't. I met you and Emma, and I thought maybe I could have a different kind of life. Maybe I could find somewhere safe to belong. Ryan felt something crack inside his chest. So you married me to hide from him? No, Claire's response was immediate and fierce. Maybe at first the protection was part of it. But I fell in love with you, with Emma, with our family. This became real for me, Ryan. Whatever it started as it became real. Does it matter? He found you anyway. The words hung between them like a blade. Claire flinched as if he'd struck her. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry I brought this into your life. I thought I could keep you safe. I thought he'd never find me here. Ryan ran his hands through his hair, trying to think clearly through his anger and fear. What does he want now? For me to come back to him, to honor the original arrangement? And if you don't? Claire looked toward the living room where Emma was playing. He'll hurt the people I love. He made that very clear. We're calling the police. No. Claire's response was immediate. Ryan, you don't understand. Tyler has connections everywhere. If we report this officially, he'll know within hours and then he'll escalate. He'll go after Emma directly next time. So what do you suggest? That we just let him terrorize our family? I don't know. Claire's composure finally shattered. I don't know what to do. I've been running from this man for 3 years, and now he's found me, and he's threatening the only family I've ever had. She was crying now, the kind of desperate tears that came from someone who'd reached the absolute end of their resources. Ryan wanted to comfort her, but he was too angry and scared to think straight. His daughter had been threatened by a man he'd never heard of because of debts he'd known nothing about. "You should have told me," he said. "Before we got married, you should have told me what I was getting into. Would you have gone through with it if you'd known?" The question stopped Ryan cold because he didn't know the answer. Would he have married Claire, knowing she came with this kind of danger? Would he have risked Emma's safety for a practical arrangement? "I don't know," he admitted. The honesty of his answer seemed to break something in Claire. She nodded once, wiped her tears, and straightened her shoulders. "I'll leave," she said quietly. "Tonight. I'll disappear again, and Tyler will follow me. You and Emma will be safe." Claire. "It's the only way. I should have done it the moment he called, but I was selfish. I wanted to keep this family for as long as possible. You're not leaving." "Yes, I am. I won't let my past destroy Emma's future." Ryan looked at this woman who'd become essential to his daily happiness, who'd made his daughter bloom like a flower in sunlight, who'd taught him how to live again instead of just surviving. The thought of losing her felt like dying. "No," he said firmly. "We deal with this together. That's what families do. They face problems together." "Ryan, you don't understand what he's capable of." "Then help me understand. But you're not running away. We're going to figure this out, and we're going to do it as a family." That evening, after Emma was asleep, Ryan called his sister, Jennifer. "I need a favor," he said. "Can Emma stay with you for a few days? There's a situation Claire and I need to handle." "Of course. What kind of situation?" "The kind where it's better if Emma isn't here." Jennifer was quiet for a moment. "Ryan, are you in danger?" "I hope not, but I need to know Emma is somewhere completely safe while we sort this out. Bring her over tonight if you need to." After hanging up, Ryan found Claire sitting on the back porch, staring into the darkness. "Emma's going to Jennifer's," he said, sitting beside her. "Good, she'll be safe there. And tomorrow we're going to figure out how to end this. Permanently." Claire looked at him with something that might have been hope. We. "You're my wife, Claire, for better or worse, in debt or in health. We're in this together." For the first time since Tyler's call, Claire allowed herself to believe that maybe she wasn't facing this alone. The emergency family meeting took place the next evening at Ryan's house. Margaret, Jennifer, and Aunt Patricia sat around the living room with expressions of concern and barely contained panic. Emma was safely at Jennifer's house with her husband Mark, playing video games and blissfully unaware of the adult crisis unfolding. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," Patricia said, her voice sharp with disapproval. "Claire has been lying to us about a $500,000 debt, and now some loan shark is threatening our family." "He's not exactly a loan shark," Claire said quietly from her chair near the window. "He's more of a businessman who makes unconventional investments." "A businessman who threatens children," Jennifer said flatly. "That's a criminal." Margaret leaned forward. "Claire, I need to ask you directly, did you marry my son to escape this man?" The question hung in the air like a sword. Everyone looked at Claire, waiting for an answer that would define everything about their family's future. Initially, Claire said, her voice steady despite the tears in her eyes. "The protection was part of why I agreed to the arrangement. But not the only reason, and not the most important reason. And it became completely irrelevant once I fell in love with Ryan and Emma." Patricia made a sound of disgust. "So you did deceive us?" "Yes," Claire said simply. "I deceived you about the extent of my family's problems. I was desperate and scared, and I thought I could handle it without involving any of you. I was wrong." Ryan watched his family process this admission. He could see them reassessing everything they thought they knew about Claire, about their marriage, about the past few months of apparent happiness. "The question now," Ryan said, "is what we do about it." "What we do is obvious," Patricia said. "Claire needs to leave immediately, before this Tyler person escalates his threats. Absolutely not, Jennifer said firmly. We don't abandon family members because things get difficult. She's not really family, Patricia shot back. She's a stranger who lied her way into our lives and brought danger to Emma. Ryan felt anger surge through him. She is family. She's my wife and Emma's mother. Whatever brought her here, she belongs with us now. Margaret looked tired. Ryan, I understand your loyalty to Claire, but we have to think about Emma's safety. If this man is willing to approach her school, then we deal with him. Ryan interrupted. We don't throw Claire to the wolves because it's convenient. It's not about convenience, Patricia said. It's about protecting an innocent child from adult problems she shouldn't have to face. Claire stood up abruptly. She's right. Everyone turned to look at her. Patricia is right. Claire continued. I brought this problem into Emma's life. I put her in danger because I was selfish and wanted to keep the only real family I've ever had. But I can't let my past hurt a 7-year-old child. She looked directly at Ryan. I should leave. It's the only way to keep Emma safe. No, Ryan said firmly. We've been through this. You're not leaving. But Emma needs her mother. She needs the woman who's helped her become confident and happy and secure. She needs the family we've built together. Claire's eyes filled with tears. Ryan, I don't want to go. This family is everything to me. But if staying puts Emma at risk, then we find another way. Jennifer interrupted. We don't give up on family members because things get complicated. Patricia turned on her niece. Jennifer, be realistic. This man knows where they live, where Emma goes to school. He's made it clear he's willing to target a child to get what he wants. How do you protect against someone like that? We get help, Ryan said. We hire security, we involve the police, we do whatever it takes, and when he retaliates, when he hurts Emma to prove a point. The room fell silent. Everyone was thinking the same thing. Tyler Morrison had already demonstrated his willingness to involve Emma. There was no reason to believe he wouldn't escalate. Margaret spoke carefully. What exactly does this man want? Is it really just the money? Claire shook her head. It was never about the money. Tyler has plenty of money. He wants control, he wants to own me. And if you went back to him, if you agreed to his terms, Mom, Jennifer said, shocked. I'm not suggesting she should, Margaret said quickly. I'm trying to understand what we're dealing with. Claire considered the question seriously. I don't think Tyler would be satisfied with just getting me back. He's been humiliated by my escape, by my marriage to Ryan. He'll want revenge against everyone who helped me build a life without him. So leaving won't solve the problem, Ryan said. It will just separate us while he continues to make our lives hell. Patricia stood up. I can't support this. I won't be part of exposing Emma to this kind of danger, because Claire can't face the consequences of her family's actions. Then don't be part of it, Ryan said coldly. But don't ask me to abandon my wife. Patricia grabbed her purse. When this blows up in your faces, don't expect me to help clean up the mess. She left, slamming the door behind her. Margaret sighed. Patricia means well, but she's never understood that family means supporting each other through difficulties, not just during good times. So you support our decision to stay together? Ryan asked. I support keeping Emma safe above all else. But I also believe that giving in to bullies rarely solves anything. Margaret looked at Claire. What you did was wrong. Lying to us, bringing this danger into our lives without warning, that was inexcusable. Claire nodded. I know. But Margaret continued, you're part of this family now. We don't throw away family members when they make mistakes. Relief flooded Claire's face. Thank you. Jennifer moved to sit beside Claire. We'll figure this out together. That's what families do. After Margaret left, Ryan and Claire sat alone in their living room, processing the evening's revelations. "Your family is defending me," Claire said wonderfully. "Even after learning the truth, even knowing I lied to them. They're defending you because you're family now. Because family isn't about perfection, it's about commitment." Claire leaned against Ryan's shoulder. "I'm so sorry I didn't tell you the truth from the beginning. I understand why you didn't. You were protecting yourself the only way you knew how." "Are you angry?" Ryan considered the question honestly. "I'm angry that you felt like you had to handle this alone. I'm angry that someone is threatening our family. But I'm not angry at you for being human and scared and desperate." "What happens now?" Ryan pulled her closer. "Now we do what we should have done from the beginning. We face this together as a family, and we find a way to end it. Tyler won't just give up. He's been patient for 3 years, but now that he's found me, he'll keep escalating until he gets what he wants. Then we'll be ready for him." That night, they called Emma at Jennifer's house to say goodnight. "When am I coming home?" Emma asked. "I miss you guys." "Soon, sweetheart," Ryan said. "Aunt Jennifer is taking good care of you, right?" "Yeah, but her house doesn't smell like home. And Uncle Mark snores really loudly." Claire took the phone. "Hey, Emma. I love you. I love you too, Mom. Is everything okay? You sound sad." The word Mom, spoken so naturally, so trustingly, broke something open in Claire's chest. "Everything's going to be okay," Claire promised. "Daddy and I are just taking care of some grown-up business." "Okay. But come get me soon. I don't like being away from my family." After hanging up, Claire looked at Ryan with determination she hadn't shown since Tyler's reappearance. "I won't let him destroy this," she said. "Whatever it takes, I won't let him take our family away from Emma. What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking it's time to stop running and start fighting back." The next few days brought a series of escalating incidents that made it clear Tyler wasn't going to wait patiently for Claire's compliance. First came the Flowers' expensive arrangements delivered to the house every morning with cards that grew progressively more unsettling. "Thinking of you. T. soon. T. we belong together. You know this." T. Ryan intercepted most of them before Claire could see them, but the florist's delivery truck became a daily reminder that Tyler was watching, waiting, making his presence known. Then came the gifts for Emma. An expensive doll arrived at Jennifer's house, addressed to Emma Collins with a note. "For a beautiful girl from an old family friend." Jennifer called immediately. "Ryan, you need to see this. The packaging has no return address, and Emma doesn't know any family friends who would send gifts." Ryan drove to Jennifer's house and found the doll a collector's item that probably cost several $100s. The note was written in elegant handwriting that made Ryan's skin crawl. "He knows where Emma is," Ryan told Claire when he returned home. Claire went pale. "We have to move her again." Where he found her at Jennifer's house within 2 days. He clearly has resources we can't match. That evening brought the photo. It arrived in an envelope, slipped under their front door while they were eating dinner. Ryan found it when he went to check the porch light. Inside was a professional quality photograph of Emma walking into Jennifer's house, taken from across the street with a telephoto lens. On the back, in the same elegant handwriting, "Beautiful children deserve protection." Ryan showed the photo to Claire, who immediately sank into a kitchen chair. "He's watching her," she whispered. "Even at Jennifer's house he's watching her. We're calling the police." "Ryan, no. If we involve the police, Claire, he's stalking our daughter. He's taking photographs of her without permission. That's illegal, regardless of whatever civil debt your family might owe him." But when Detective Martinez arrived an hour later, Ryan learned how limited their options actually were. "The flowers and doll aren't illegal if they're genuinely gifts," Detective Martinez explained. "The photograph is more concerning, but it was taken from a public street, so there's no reasonable expectation of privacy." "He tried to pick her up from school," Ryan said, "without succeeding, and he left voluntarily when challenged. Technically, there was no crime committed. So we're supposed to just wait until he actually hurts someone? Detective Martinez looked sympathetic but realistic. We can increase patrols in your neighborhood, and I can have someone talk to him about maintaining appropriate boundaries. But unless he makes explicit threats or commits an actual crime, our hands are tied. After the detective left, Ryan called a private security company. By the next morning, they had cameras installed around the house's perimeter and a security method that would alert them to any unauthorized approach. But Tyler seemed to view the security measures as a challenge rather than a deterrent. The next incident happened at Ryan's office. Tyler simply walked in during business hours and asked to speak with Ryan about a mutual acquaintance named Claire. The receptionist, assuming it was a business meeting, showed him to Ryan's office. "This is a pleasant surprise," Tyler said, settling into the chair across from Ryan's desk. "I wanted to see where my future brother-in-law works. Get out of my office." Now. No need to be hostile. I'm here to make you an offer." Tyler placed a briefcase on Ryan's desk and opened it, revealing neatly stacked bundles of cash. $200,000, Tyler said. "Cash. Consider it compensation for the inconvenience of this whole situation." "Compensation for what?" "For the dissolution of your marriage. You see, Claire was promised to me long before she met you. I'm simply here to collect what was already mine." Ryan stared at the money. "You think you can buy my wife?" "I think you can be reasonable about an unfortunate misunderstanding. Claire will come back to me eventually, that's inevitable. This offer allows you to maintain your dignity while ending things amicably. She's my wife. She loves me and I love her." Tyler's smile didn't waver. "Love is a luxury, Mr. Collins. Security is a necessity. And I can provide Claire with security you never could. Security, you're stalking her. I'm protecting her from herself. Claire has always made poor decisions when left to her own devices. She needs guidance structure, someone strong enough to keep her safe from her own impulses." The casual possessiveness in Tyler's voice made Ryan want to reach across the desk and strangle him. "She's not property," Ryan said through gritted teeth. "Isn't she?" "She agreed to an arranged marriage for money. She married you to escape her obligations to me. How is that different from any other business transaction?" Tyler closed the briefcase and stood up. "Think about my offer, Mr. Collins. $200,000 is more money than most people see in a lifetime, and all you have to do is step aside and let Claire come home where she belongs." And if I refuse, Tyler's smile turned cold. Then I stopped being polite about this situation. That night, Ryan couldn't sleep. He paced the house, checking and rechecking the security system, jumping at every small sound. Claire found him at 2 a.m. standing in Emma's empty bedroom, staring out the window. "He came to my office today," Ryan said, without preamble. "What did he want?" "To buy you. He offered me $200,000 to dissolve our marriage." Claire closed her eyes. "What did you tell him?" "I told him you're not for sale." "Maybe you should reconsider." Ryan spun around. "What? $200,000, Ryan? That's Emma's college fund, your retirement savings, everything you've worked for. And all you have to do is let me go back to the life I was supposed to have anyway. Stop talking like that." "Tyler's right about one thing," Claire said quietly. "I did marry you to escape him. Maybe that makes our whole relationship a lie. You know that's not true. Do I, because standing here now with Tyler threatening the people I love, I wonder if I've just been selfish from the beginning, taking what I wanted without considering the cost to others." Ryan crossed the room and took her hands. "Claire, look at me. You didn't take anything from me. You gave me everything. You gave me back my life, my daughter's happiness, my ability to love someone again. At what cost? Tyler will keep escalating until he gets what he wants, or until someone gets hurt. And Emma needs her mother. She needs the woman who's helped her become confident and joyful and secure. She needs to be safe more than she needs me. She needs both. And she's going to have both because we're going to figure this out. How Tyler has unlimited resources connections everywhere, no moral boundaries. What do we have? Ryan thought about his family's support, about Emma's trust, about the love they'd built together over the past few months. We have each other, he said finally. And sometimes that's enough. But even as he said it, Ryan wondered if love would be sufficient against someone with Tyler Morrison's determination and resources. For the first time since this crisis began, he felt truly afraid. Not just of losing Claire, but of failing to protect Emma from a threat he didn't fully understand and couldn't seem to stop. 3 days later, Claire made a decision that would change everything. She waited until Ryan left for work and then called Tyler Morrison's number, which she still had memorized from her years of running. "Tyler, it's Claire. I was wondering when you'd call." His voice was smooth, satisfied. "Ready to be reasonable, I want to meet. To discuss terms." "Excellent. I knew you'd come to your senses eventually, but I have conditions." Tyler laughed. "You're hardly in a position to make demands, my dear. I am, if you want this to end peacefully. You meet me alone in a public place, and we resolve this like adults. No more threatening Emma. No more showing up at Ryan's office." There was a pause. "And in return, I'll listen to what you have to say. I'll consider your proposal seriously. The warehouse district on Harbor Street, tonight at 8. And Claire, come alone." Claire hung up the phone, her hands shaking. She had no intention of agreeing to Tyler's demands, but she needed to buy time and get him away from her family. She spent the day making arrangements. First, she called Detective Martinez and explained that she had evidence of Tyler's threats, the photos, the gifts, the recorded phone calls she'd been secretly making. She arranged to meet him at the police station the next morning to file formal charges. Then she called her brother Jake. Claire Jake's voice was surprised. "I thought you'd never want to speak to me again. I need to know about Tyler's business operations, his weaknesses, his pressure points, anything that might help me stop him." Jake was quiet for a long moment. "Claire, you don't understand what you're dealing with. Tyler isn't just dangerous, he's untouchable. He has judges in his pocket, police commissioners, politicians. There has to be something. Some way to fight back." "There is one thing," Jake said reluctantly. "Tyler's been under federal investigation for money laundering. The FBI has been building a case against him for 2 years, but they need evidence of his threats and intimidation tactics. If you could get him to admit to what he's been doing." Claire felt a spark of hope. Would that be enough to stop him? It might be. "But Claire, you'd have to get him talking on the record, and if he found out you were recording him, he'd kill me." "Probably." That evening, Claire left a note for Ryan explaining what she was doing and why. She asked him not to follow her, not to try to intervene, just to trust that she knew what she was doing. She drove to the warehouse district with a small recording device hidden in her jacket, her heart pounding with terror and determination. Tyler was waiting for her in the empty parking lot, leaning against an expensive sedan with the casual confidence of a man who had never been truly challenged. "You came," he said as Claire approached. "I wasn't entirely sure you would. I said I would listen. I'm here to listen. Good. Let's walk." They moved toward the abandoned warehouse that dominated the lot. Tyler had clearly chosen this location, carefully isolated. No witnesses, plenty of privacy for whatever he had planned. "You look well," Tyler said conversationally. "Marriage agrees with you, though I imagine playing house with a grieving widower has its challenges. Ryan is a good man. I'm sure he is. Weak, obviously, or he would have handled this situation more aggressively, but probably a decent enough fellow." Claire forced herself to stay calm. "What do you want, Tyler?" "The same thing I've always wanted. You. In my house, in my bed, bearing my children, the future we planned before you had your little moment of rebellion. I never planned that future. You planned it without asking me. Tyler stopped walking and turned to face her. Claire, let's be honest about what this is. Your family owed me money they couldn't repay. I offered to forgive that debt in exchange for marriage. It's a business transaction, nothing more romantic. And if I refuse, then your family faces the consequences of their actions. Your brother Jake, for instance. Such a lovely young man. It would be a shame if something happened to him. Claire felt cold understanding wash over her. You're threatening to hurt Jake. I'm explaining the reality of the situation. Debts must be paid one way or another. The recording device was getting everything. Tyler's casual threats, his admission that this was about ownership rather than love, his willingness to hurt innocent people to get what he wanted. What about Emma? What about Ryan? What about them? You'll divorce the husband, obviously. As for the child, Tyler shrugged. Children adapt. She'll forget about you eventually. She's 7 years old. She calls me Mom. Yes, I heard about that. Quite touching, really. But children form attachments quickly, and break them just as quickly. She'll be fine. Claire's hands clenched into fists. You're talking about destroying a family. I'm talking about correcting a mistake. You were never meant for domestic bliss, Claire. You were meant for something more sophisticated. You mean I was meant to be your property? Tyler's smile sharpened. If you want to put it that way, yes. You belong to me, Claire. You've always belonged to me. This little adventure with your accountant husband was just a temporary detour. And if I still refuse, then I stop being patient. Your stepdaughter has such a regular schedule. School every weekday at 8:30 playground time, at noon dismissal at 3:15. Children are so vulnerable, don't you think? The threat was clear and specific. Claire felt rage surge through her, but she forced herself to stay calm. You would hurt an innocent child. I would do whatever is necessary to reclaim what belongs to me. Claire had heard enough. She had Tyler's threats on record, his admissions of stalking and intimidation, everything the FBI would need to build their case. I need time to think, she said. Of course, take all the time you need. But remember, every day you delay is another day your family remains at risk. Tyler walked her back to the parking lot, completely unaware that he had just confessed to enough crimes to put him away for decades. As Claire drove home, she called the number Jake had given her for the FBI agent handling Tyler's case. Agent Roberts. This is Claire Collins. I have something you're going to want to hear. The FBI raid happened at dawn on a Friday morning. Claire watched from the window of a safe house as armored vehicles surrounded Tyler Morrison's downtown office building. Agent Roberts had explained that they would execute warrants for Tyler's business and residential properties, seizing financial records and arresting him on federal charges of extortion, money laundering, and threatening interstate commerce. The recording you provided was exactly what we needed, Agent Roberts had told her the night before. Morrison's threats against your family, combined with the evidence we've gathered about his financial operations, should be enough to put him away for 20 to 30 years. Claire allowed herself to feel hope for the first time in days. It was over. Tyler would be arrested, charged, convicted. Her family would be safe. That feeling lasted exactly 4 hours. We have a problem, Agent Roberts said when he called at noon. Morrison wasn't at any of his properties. His lawyers are claiming he's out of the country on business and they don't know when he'll return. What does that mean? It means he's been tipped off somehow. He knew we were coming. Claire felt cold dread settle in her stomach. So he's still out there. For now. But we've frozen his assets, seized his business records, and put out a federal warrant for his arrest. He can't hide forever. But Tyler Morrison wasn't interested in hiding forever. He was interested in one last confrontation. The call came to Ryan's cell phone at 2 p.m. while Claire was still at the FBI safe house, and Ryan was pacing his office, unable to concentrate on anything except his family's safety. "Mr. Collins, this is Tyler Morrison. I think it's time we had a proper conversation. Where's my wife safe for the moment? Though I understand she's been busy talking to federal agents. How unfortunate." Ryan's blood turned to ice. "What do you want?" "I want what I've always wanted." "Claire. And since she seems determined to make this complicated, I think we need to clarify a few things. The FBI is looking for you." "Yes, so I've heard. It seems Claire has been recording our private conversations. Very impolite of her, don't you think? If you hurt her, Mr. Collins, please. I have no intention of hurting Claire. She's far too valuable to damage. But you, on the other hand, you're completely expendable." The line went dead. Ryan immediately called Agent Roberts, who contacted Claire and explained the situation. "He's going to try to draw you out." Agent Roberts warned, "Morrison knows his time is limited. He's going to make a desperate play to reclaim what he thinks he owns." "What about Ryan? What about Emma?" "Emma is safe with your sister-in-law. We have agents watching the house, and we're tracking Morrison's phone signal. But Claire, if he contacts you directly, don't go alone. Call us immediately." Claire's phone rang at 4 p.m. "Hello, darling." Tyler's voice was calm, pleasant, as if he were calling to arrange a dinner date. "Tyler, I think there's been a misunderstanding. This situation has become far more complicated than necessary. The FBI has evidence of your crimes. It's over. Is it because from where I sit, your husband is still walking around free, your stepdaughter is still attending school, and your new family is still vulnerable to all sorts of unfortunate accidents?" Claire felt terror grip her chest. "What do you want? I want you to meet me. One last time. We'll resolve this properly like civilized adults. The FBI will never let me meet with you alone. Then don't tell them. Come alone, Claire. Tonight. The warehouse where we met before. And if I don't, then I stop targeting you and start targeting them. Your choice." The line went dead. Claire stared at her phone, knowing she was about to make a decision that could get her killed. But she also knew Tyler wasn't bluffing. If she didn't end this tonight, he would spend the rest of his life hunting her family. She called Ryan. "Where are you?" he asked immediately. "Safe house. FBI protection. Ryan Tyler called me." "What did he want?" Claire closed her eyes. "To meet. Tonight. Alone. Absolutely not. He threatened you and Emma directly. If I don't go, Claire, do not even think about meeting that psychopath alone. It's the only way to end this. No, it's the best way to get yourself killed. We wait for the FBI to find him. What if they don't? What if he disappears for months or years and then comes back when we least expect it? Emma can't live under federal protection forever." Ryan was quiet for a long moment. "Where are you supposed to meet him? The warehouse district?" "The same place as before. I'm coming with you." "Ryan, no. If he sees you, Claire, I'm not letting you face this alone. We're married. We're partners. We deal with problems together." Despite everything, Claire felt warmth spread through her chest. Even facing a dangerous criminal, Ryan was insisting they face it together. "The FBI will never approve this. Then we don't ask them. We handle it ourselves." "Ryan, this is insane. Tyler is dangerous, possibly armed, definitely desperate. So are we. And we have something he doesn't. What we have each other. And we have something worth fighting for." That evening, as the sun set over Seattle, Ryan and Claire drove toward the warehouse district together. They'd left messages for Agent Roberts explaining what they were doing, but they'd turned off their phones to prevent any interference. Claire carried a small recording device. Ryan had a baseball bat from Emma's Little League games in the trunk of his car. Neither of them had any illusions about their chances against Tyler Morrison if things went wrong. But they also knew they couldn't live in fear forever. The warehouse parking lot was empty except for Tyler's sedan. He stood beside it, checking his watch like a man waiting for a business meeting to begin. "Claire," he called as they approached. "And you brought your husband. How domestic." "Tyler, this ends tonight," Claire said, "one way or another." Tyler studied Ryan with almost interest. "You must love her very much to walk into this situation." "More than you could possibly understand," Ryan replied. "Yes, I'm sure you think you do. But love is just biochemistry, Mr. Collins, temporary chemical reactions that fade over time. What I offer, Claire, is much more substantial. What you offer is ownership." Claire said, "I'm not property, Tyler. I never was." "Aren't you? Your family sold you to me to cover their debts. I paid for you fair and square." Ryan stepped forward. "Nobody sold anybody. You're delusional if you think humans can be bought and sold." Tyler pulled a gun from his jacket. "I think this conversation has gone on long enough." Claire immediately stepped between Tyler and Ryan. "Don't hurt him. Please. This is between you and me." "Yes, it is." Tyler kept the gun trained on Ryan. "Walk away, Mr. Collins. Drive home to your daughter and forget Claire ever existed." "No. I'm sorry." "No, I won't abandon my wife. Whatever happens here, we face it together." Tyler's expression darkened. "You're willing to die for her, if necessary. How noble. And how stupid." In the distance, the sound of sirens began to grow louder. Someone had called the police, or perhaps Agent Roberts had tracked them down despite their precautions. Tyler heard the sirens too. His calm demeanor cracked slightly. "It seems our time has been cut short," he said. "Claire, last chance. Come with me now, or watch your husband die." Claire looked at Ryan, at this man who had become her whole world, who was willing to risk everything to stand beside her. "I choose him," she said. "I choose my family. I choose love over fear." Tyler raised the gun toward Ryan. Claire threw herself forward, grabbing for the weapon. The next few seconds happened in slow motion. The gun went off. Claire and Tyler struggled for control. Ryan jumped into the fight. When the police arrived moments later, they found Tyler Morrison on the ground, unconscious from Ryan's tackle. The gun had discharged into the air, hitting no one. Claire and Ryan sat in the back of an ambulance holding each other while paramedics checked them for injuries they didn't have. "It's over," Claire whispered against Ryan's chest. "It's over," he agreed. Tyler Morrison was arrested on multiple federal charges. The FBI's evidence, combined with his attempted assault of Ryan and Claire, ensured he would spend decades in federal prison. 3 months later, Claire received a letter from Jake. Tyler's conviction had freed him from the debt and the fear that had controlled his life for years. He was moving to Portland, starting over, trying to become the kind of brother Claire deserved. But Claire barely thought about Jake or Tyler or the past that had haunted her for so long. She was too busy living in the present with her husband and daughter and the beautiful life they'd built together. 6 months after Tyler Morrison's arrest, life began to feel normal again. Emma returned home from Jennifer's house and settled back into her routine with the resilient adaptability that children possess. She asked a few questions about the bad man who had scared everyone, but she seemed satisfied with Ryan and Claire's explanation that some people make poor choices and have to face consequences. "Like when I don't clean my room and lose TV privileges?" Emma asked. "Something like that," Claire agreed, "but much more serious." "Good," Emma said firmly. "I don't like people who are mean to my family." The security cameras remained on their house, but the constant vigilance gradually relaxed into normal parental awareness. Claire stopped jumping at unexpected phone calls. Ryan stopped checking the locks 3 times before bed. They went to family therapy together, all 3 of them, to process the trauma and ensure Emma felt safe expressing any fears or concerns she might have. Dr. Martinez helped them understand that healing was a process, not a destination. Families that survive crisis together often become stronger. Dr. Martinez told them, You've learned that you can count on each other when things get difficult. That's a powerful foundation for the future. One evening in May, while Emma was at a sleepover with her friend Sophie, Ryan found Claire sitting in their backyard, reading in the late spring sunshine. She looked peaceful, content, more relaxed than he'd seen her since before Tyler's reappearance. "Good book?" he asked, settling beside her on the porch swing. "Romance novel," Claire admitted sheepishly. "Pure escapism." "You deserve some escapism." Claire set the book aside and curled up against Ryan's shoulder. "I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, for some new crisis to appear. Maybe the other shoe doesn't exist. Maybe this is just what happiness looks like, ordinary moments, quiet evenings, no major disasters on the horizon. Is this what marriage was like with Sarah? This feeling of security?" Ryan considered the question honestly. "Sarah and I were young when we got married. Everything was intense, dramatic, full of passion, but also full of uncertainty. What we have feels different, more stable, more intentional. Do you miss the intensity sometimes? But I wouldn't trade what we have for anything more dramatic. I've had enough drama to last several lifetimes." Claire laughed. "Me too." That weekend, they took Emma to the Pacific Science Center, where she marveled at the planetarium show Claire had promised her months earlier. Watching Emma's face light up as the narrator explained the birth of stars, Ryan felt a deep contentment he'd never experienced with Sarah. Not because he loved Claire more, but because he loved her differently. More carefully, more gratefully, with the full knowledge of how easily love could be lost. "Look, Dad," Emma whispered, as the dome filled with the aurora borealis. "It's like the sky is dancing." Ryan squeezed Claire's hand in the darkness, thinking about how many small miracles had led them to this moment. 2 months later, Claire got the job at the Seattle Public Library's main branch, working in the children's department. Her supervisor, Mrs. Chen, was impressed by Claire's natural ability to connect with young readers and her innovative ideas for literacy programs. "You have a gift," Mrs. Chen told her after Claire's first month. "The children adore you, and their parents have noticed real improvement in reading enthusiasm." Claire came home that day glowing with professional satisfaction she'd never experienced before. "I helped a 6-year-old discover that she could read chapter books today," she told Ryan over dinner. "She was so proud of herself she cried." "That's wonderful," Emma said seriously. "Reading is very important. Books can teach you about anything." "What would you like to learn about Claire?" asked. Everything Emma said promptly. "I want to read about dinosaurs and space and other countries and how things work and what it was like when you and Dad were kids." Ryan and Claire exchanged amused glances. "That's quite an ambitious reading list," Ryan said. "We have our whole lives to read," Emma pointed out. "We should get started." That night, after Emma was asleep, Ryan made an announcement that surprised Claire. "I've been thinking about going back to school," he said. "Back to school, to get my teaching certificate. I want to be an elementary school teacher like I planned before life got complicated." Claire's face lit up. "Ryan, that's wonderful. What changed your mind? Watching you with Emma, seeing how much joy you get from helping children learn, and realizing that life is too short to spend it doing work that doesn't feed your soul. What about the accounting firm, your partnership? I can sell my share to my partners. It'll provide enough money to support us while I go back to school." Claire kissed him softly. "I think that's the bravest thing you could do, following your real dreams instead of just the practical ones." A year later, Ryan was student teaching at Emma's elementary school. The other kids thought it was hilarious that Emma's dad was learning to be a teacher, but Emma was incredibly proud. "My dad is going to teach 2nd grade next year," she told anyone who would listen. "He's going to be the best teacher ever, because he already knows how to help kids feel important." One afternoon, while Ryan was teaching a math lesson to a group of 2nd graders, he looked up to see Emma peeking through the classroom door during her lunch break. She waved at him, grinning, and mouthed, "Hi, Dad," before skipping back to the playground. Ryan felt his heart swell with happiness that had nothing to do with his lesson plan and everything to do with the beautiful, ordinary miracle of being known and loved by his daughter. That evening he came home to find Claire and Emma baking cookies together, flour dusting every surface of the kitchen. "We're making snickerdoodles," Emma announced. "Claire's teaching me how to roll the dough in cinnamon sugar. She's a natural baker," Claire said, ruffling Emma's hair. "Much neater than I was at her age." Ryan watched them work together, noting the easy affection between them. The way Emma automatically leaned against Claire for guidance, the way Claire instinctively smoothed Emma's hair back from her face. They looked like what they were, mother and daughter, bound not by biology, but by choice, and daily care, and deep protective love. "How was student teaching today?" Claire asked, sliding a tray of cookies into the oven. "Perfect," Ryan said honestly. "Absolutely perfect." That night, after Emma was asleep and they were cleaning the kitchen together, Claire made an announcement of her own. "I want to go back to school too," she said. "For what? Library science. A master's degree. I want to become a children's librarian, officially, maybe eventually run my own literacy programs." Ryan grinned. "We'll be broke college students together. Is that okay? Can we afford for both of us to be following our dreams at the same time?" Ryan pulled her into his arms. "We can afford whatever makes us happy. Money we can figure out. Dreams delayed too long disappear forever." On a sunny Saturday morning in September, 18 months after their arranged marriage began, Ryan woke to the sound of laughter from downstairs. Claire and Emma were making pancakes together, and Emma was apparently telling a story that had Claire giggling like a teenager. Ryan lay in bed for a moment, just listening. This was what happiness sounded like: his daughter's chatter, his wife's laughter, the comfortable chaos of family breakfast being prepared with love instead of obligation. When he finally joined them in the kitchen, he found Emma flipping pancakes with intense concentration, while Claire supervised with gentle encouragement. "Dad, look, I can flip them without breaking them," Emma announced proudly. "I can see that. Very impressive." Claire handed him coffee and kissed his cheek. "Our daughter is a pancake prodigy." Our daughter. The phrase no longer felt strange or forced. Emma was their daughter in every way that mattered, loved, protected, guided by two parents who had chosen to build a life together. "What's the plan for today?" Ryan asked, settling at the table. "Park this morning," Emma said carefully, transferring a perfectly round pancake to a plate. "Then we promised to visit Grandma Margaret and help her with her garden. And tonight," Claire added, "we're having dinner with Jennifer and Mark. Sophie's coming too, so Emma will have someone to play with." It was an ordinary Saturday agenda, the kind of routine that defined stable family life. Ryan marveled at how precious ordinary had become. After breakfast, they walked to Discovery Park together. Emma ran ahead to claim her favorite swing, while Ryan and Claire followed at a more leisurely pace, holding hands and enjoying the perfect September weather. "I have something to tell you," Claire said, as they settled on a bench near the playground. "Good something or bad something, hopefully good something." Claire's smile was nervous and excited. "I'm pregnant." Ryan stared at her, his brain struggling to process the words. "Pregnant?" "About 8 weeks along. I saw Dr. Harrison yesterday to confirm." "We're having a baby." "We're having a baby." Ryan pulled Claire into his arms, kissing her soundly while Emma called out from the swings. Gross no kissing at the park. They broke apart laughing, and Ryan realized he was crying. "Happy tears?" Claire asked. "The happiest tears." "Claire, I can't even, we're having a baby. I know it's not what we planned, it's better than what we planned, it's perfect." That evening they told Emma over dinner at Jennifer's house. Ryan had worried about how Emma might react to the news that she would no longer be an only child, but her response was immediate and enthusiastic. "A baby, really? Will it be a boy or a girl?" "We don't know yet," Claire said. What would you prefer? Emma considered this seriously. I think a girl would be nice. Then I could teach her important things like how to read and how to make Dad laugh when he's grumpy. And if it's a boy? Ryan asked. Then I could teach him important things too, like how to climb trees and how to make Mom laugh when she's worried. Jennifer raised her wine glass. To unexpected blessings and growing families. To second chances and choosing each other every day. Ryan added, to love that makes room for more love. Claire finished. Later that night, after Emma had fallen asleep between them during movie night on the couch, Ryan and Claire sat in their backyard, talking about the future in a way they'd never allowed themselves before. Do you think we'll be good at this? Claire asked, her hand resting on her still, flat stomach. Raising a baby together, I think we'll figure it out as we go, just like we've figured out everything else. Emma's going to be an amazing big sister. She's been practicing for this role her whole life, taking care of everyone around her. Now she'll have someone small enough that she can actually help instead of just worrying. Claire leaned against Ryan's shoulder. I never thought I'd have this. A husband who loves me, a daughter who chose me as her mom, a baby that we planned together. Even though none of it was actually planned. Especially because none of it was planned. The best things in life seem to happen when you're not looking for them. 6 months later, on a crisp March morning, baby Sarah Claire Collins was born, weighing 7 pounds and 2 ounces. Emma was the first to hold her new sister sitting very carefully in the hospital chair with the baby nestled in her arms. She's so tiny, Emma whispered in wonder, and she has Dad's nose, but Mom's chin. What do you think she's dreaming about? Claire asked from her hospital bed. Probably about how lucky she is to have the best family in the world, Emma said seriously. Ryan stood beside them watching his wife recover from childbirth, and his older daughter welcome her baby sister with gentle reverence. They'd named the baby Sarah, partly to honor Emma's birth mother, but mostly because it meant princess, and this little girl would indeed be treasured royalty in their household. I love you, Ryan said to all 3 of his girls. More than I ever thought it was possible to love anyone. We love you too, Daddy, Emma said. All of us. That night, after visiting hours ended, and Emma went home with Jennifer. Ryan sat beside Claire's hospital bed, holding baby Sarah while Claire slept. The baby was perfect. 10 tiny fingers, 10 tiny toes. Sarah's delicate features, but Claire's dark hair. Through the window he could see the lights of Seattle twinkling in the distance. Somewhere out there was their home, where photos of 2 different mothers sat side by side on the mantel. Where Emma's artwork covered the refrigerator and Claire's books filled the shelves, and memories of love and loss and healing layered like sediment in every room. It had taken Ryan 7 years to learn that love doesn't replace love. It just expands the heart's capacity to hold more. He'd thought his story ended with Sarah's death, but it had only been an intermission before the next chapter began. The chapter where an arranged marriage became a love story, where a broken widower learned to live again, where a frightened woman found the courage to fight for her family, where a lonely little girl got the mother and sister she'd always dreamed of. If this story touched your heart the way it touched mine, if it reminded you that second chances exist and broken doesn't mean beyond repair, please don't let it end here. Hit that subscribe button and join our Soul Lift Stories family for more stories that restore your faith in humanity. Share this story with someone who needs to remember that love finds us when we least expect it but need it most. And if this story moved you, drop a heart in the comments and tell us what part touched you the most. Remember, sometimes the most beautiful families are the ones we choose. Sometimes the greatest love stories begin as practical arrangements. And sometimes when we think our story has ended, it's really just beginning. Thanks for watching. And remember, love always finds a way.